After more than a year of practice, Son Goku had grown the ki in his body. At this time, his ki was no less than at the beginning of the original story. With Ayaka's guidance, Son Goku's strength was continually getting more robust. One day, Ayaka began to formally teach Son Goku about the use of ki in battle. "Goku, use your strongest power to attack," Ayaka said to Son Goku, then stood blandly to the side with an utterly defenseless look. Son Goku nodded thoughtfully, then took an attack stance, his face staring intently at Ayaka. "Ho!" Son Goku lightly shouted. His body slightly leaned forward and then flashed as fast as the wind rushed towards Ayaka. The original place produced a whirlwind because of the speed. In an instant, Son Goku had arrived in front of Ayaka and launched a fierce attack on her. Slap! Snap! Snap! Son Goku's blistering attack didn't hurt Ayaka. Instead, Ayaka smiled and dazzled amid Son Goku's attack. The attack didn't even hit her once. She then stretched out a finger, quickly took Son Goku's attack. "This time, it's my turn to attack." Ayaka looked at Son Goku with a faint smile. Her gaze was like a torch, seeing the flaw in Son Goku's attack with a single glance. She then falsely pointed her finger and gently touched Son Goku's chest. Bang! Son Goku felt as if a heavy hammer had been pounded on him. His body violently flew backward and fell heavily into place, losing his ability to react all of a sudden. So powerful. Son Goku bared his teeth and said with a sad face, "Obviously, it was just a light touch, but I never thought it would have such a great power. You attack with too many unnecessary movements. This will reduce the force of your attack and make it easy for your opponent to find a flaw." Ayaka stretched out her finger and said to Son Goku, "A real attack is enough with a single blow. You should shed the unnecessary movements and gather a single point to kill with a single blow." Of course, that is when there is a huge difference in strength between the two sides. If the two sides are similar in strength, then do not think of a single fatal move, but a deadly one. Seeing Son Goku listen carefully, Ayaka was getting very interested in explaining, in the case of similar strength, any flaw may be fatal. At this time, we must completely abandon the extra action. Try to hit with 7 points, leave 3 points so that you don't need to give full strength, and leave no room for maneuvering. It's important to do that. Ayaka pointed out Son Goku's mistakes in the attack, and Son Goku listened carefully to Ayaka's explanation. However, the universe was so big, and the opponents he encountered were often vastly different in strength, so the advantage of overall strength was quite significant. Then, Ayaka began to explain the use of ki. Before attacking, you have to be as powerful as a spectrum and go forward. With that, a majestic aura emerged from Ayaka. This aura was like a black cloud that makes people tremble. It carried endless destructive ki, making Son Goku felt like he was in purgatory all of a sudden. His body couldn't help but tremble, and cold sweat flowed out from his back. Attack like a swift thunderbolt, and fast as lightning. Ayaka's figure flickered and disappeared from the spot at once, while a crack of several meters square appeared where she was standing just now. Ta-da-da. From time to time, the sound of footsteps came to his ears, but he couldn't sense Ayaka's presence. Ayaka deliberately slowed down so that Son Goku could see her movements. In an instant, Ayaka's figure appeared in the sky, the ground, and the forest. An afterimage covered the whole Mount Paozu, making Son Goku's mouth open wide in shock. The moment you attack, you have to be as steady as a mountain and heavy as a rock. Ayaka stopped the high-speed movement. She paused and continued to explain. She clenched her fists, and the two fists knocked against each other. Immediately, a strong shock wave came from between her fists, and the shock wave carried a powerful cyclone, which instantly bent the surrounding bamboo forest and trees. The powerful cyclone also blew Son Goku, causing him to close his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Son Goku saw Ayaka leap to a height of tens of meters and then swooped downward. Boom! Ayaka smashed her fist on the ground. Suddenly, the ground began to shake up, and the entire open space quickly sunk with Ayaka's fist as the center. There was a strong sense of vibration along with a visual impact that couldn't be seen directly swept away. When everything calmed down, a vast crater more than 100 meters wide was produced in front of Son Goku. Son Goku was shocked by Ayaka's series of movements. In his perception, even his grandfather, Son Gohan, didn't have such a powerful force. Looking at the space that was already a mess, Son Goku said with a slightly shaky voice, "Is all of this the power of ki?" Ayaka nodded, smiled, and said, "Yes, these are the use of ki. After all, the strength of the human body is limited. Ki, on the other hand, can make the human body produce a terrifying force in battle. Goku, the ki in your body, is not yet so powerful to do what I do, but there are a few tricks you can learn." Ayaka intended to teach Son Goku Kamehameha and dancing sky art. As for Kaioken, solar flare, or whatever, Ayaka intended to let Son Goku comprehend it himself when he encountered it in the future. She could teach Son Goku the use of ki, but regarding his growth, Ayaka was prepared to let nature take its course and not interfere too much. After all, it was easy to teach him, but the only way for him to comprehend it deeply was to do it personally. "Really? Sister, what technique are you going to teach me?" Son Goku said excitedly, rubbing his fists together, looking stupidly eager. "The first technique is called Kamehameha." Ayaka stretched out one finger and said to Son Goku, "Kamehameha is your grandfather's teacher's master Rashi signature attack that your grandfather also knew." Kamehameha was a move that focused the release of ki in the body to the outside of the body. After a certain amount of ki had accumulated, a person could release it as long as there was a window. There was a question of efficiency in releasing ki, and Kamehameha was considered an efficient release. The same applied to Master Shin's Dodon Ray. Grandfather's teacher. Son Goku's eyes widened. Since it was his grandfather's teacher's signature move, then the power must be mighty. Master Rashi is known as the god of martial arts, and his martial arts skills are excellent. It was the lustful problem that gave him a lot of demerits. In Ayaka's mind, Master Rashi was just as good as the bad, with admiration and contempt. "The second technique I want to teach you is called dancing sky art. This is the turtle school and crane school technique. Master Rashi and Master Shin are brothers, and their techniques are efficient. However, your grandfather did not learn this technique." Upon seeing Son Goku's impatient look, Ayaka smiled and began to teach him Kamehameha. First of all, she roughly gestured the starting stance of Kamehameha. The blazing blue ki wave shone between her hands, and then the wave was launched towards the distant mountain. Boom! Kamehameha struck the opposite mountain and instantly cut the opposite hill in half. Looking at the powerful Kamehameha, Son Goku cheered with a smile on his face. He then followed Ayaka's actions to use Kamehameha, but because he hadn't mastered the principle of releasing Kamehameha, the ki wave just gathered a little between his hands and soon disappeared into a cloud of smoke. Ayaka carefully explained the starting form and precautions of Kamehameha and then let Son Goku practice alone. Although Son Goku was a little exhausted from his training, when Ayaka gave him the method and precautions, he kept practicing. After a few days, Son Goku was finally able to release Kamehameha. Despite the slight lack of power he used on Kamehameha, which was more like a fire trail, he was already 4 years ahead of the original story. Next, Ayaka began to teach Son Goku the Crane School's secret technique, dancing sky art. Condense the ki on the feet, and then raise yourself little by little. Ayaka taught Son Goku to learn how to float first. Dancing sky art was excellent combat skills. With dancing sky art, many things became convenient. Son Goku followed the instructions, and slowly his body was able to float. When Ayaka saw that his perception was quite good, she taught him even more vigorously. Finally, one day, Son Goku was able to fly freely. Time had passed by another year, and Son Goku had reached 12, while Ayaka began to enter puberty a few years ago. The young girl's body had started to develop. At first, she had some discomfort. Her chest was sore when her nipples and areola were changing as a small mound slowly appeared on her chest. She knew that this was the accumulation of subcutaneous glands and fat. Therefore, she chose some loose clothing when dressing because she didn't want to have a deformed body. After the body's initial embarrassment, now Ayaka had slowly adapted to the adolescent girl's body. The thriving look seemed to be hidden under the vigorous vitality's flesh, and there was a trend of more explosion. As for the sensitive parts between the legs, it had unknowingly appeared. Eventually, some things must come, making Ayaka embarrassed because now, she was half tender and half ripe. Considering that she had entered puberty, it could be expected that girls' most significant trouble would also visit shortly. Of course, at the moment, these were still very personal changes, not enough for outsiders to come. However, the striking differences were not without consequences. Ayaka's height began to grow fiercely, and now her height had reached 1.68 meters, close to 1.7 meters. It was utterly a pair of height that had grown up. Since her body began to develop, her strength increase was also pronounced. It seemed that when Science entered the developmental period, the growth of strength would open the floodgates and join the fast lane. Now, Ayaka had fully felt the change from day to day. Besides, Ayaka's hair had grown up to her shoulders. In addition to the 2 long strands of hair hanging on her chest, she also had a long braid behind her back. Her dress was full of the playfulness and beauty of a young girl. Such a dress wouldn't interfere with the sensitive activities in any way and certainly did not affect the strength of the move. The glazed moon shines between the bamboo leaves under the moonlight, interspersed with the mist that had just risen, making the night look extra hazy. The west wind blew the tender bamboo, which swayed enchantingly and made a loud sound. A pavilioned young girl stood among the green pines and tender bamboo, holding a cup of fresh hot tea in her hand, looking out at the scenery of the distant mountains. "Sister." Behind her, a child with a tail on his butt called softly. Ayaka turned back to Son Goku and asked, "What's wrong? You can't sleep?" "I'm hungry again," Son Goku said as he touched his stomach in embarrassment. Ayaka rolled her eyes, looked helplessly at Son Goku, and went back to prepare snacks for him. He ate so much during dinner, how come he's hungry again so soon? Could it be that he's starting to grow? Upon thinking of Son Goku that was already 8 years old, he should be growing up. However, she had read the original story and knew that Son Goku would have to grow in size after defeating Demon King Piccolo. Ayaka was preparing a midnight snack in the kitchen when she suddenly felt the sound of intense vibrations and roaring beasts coming from outside. Oh no! Ayaka suddenly remembered that today was a full moon. How could she be so melancholy because of the beauty of the moment? Full moon meant giant ape. She quickly ran to the outside of the house. Saiyans can transform into giant apes under the full moon. Son Goku will lose consciousness after turning into a giant ape, completely turned into a fierce beast. Ayaka came to the courtyard and saw a giant ape more than 10 meters tall roaring madly, yanking a large tree in his hand and waving it around indiscriminately. The giant ape jumped up and down, making potholes in the courtyard. Ayaka looked at the inhumanely damaged yard, flowers, and plants that she had planted with her own hands, causing anger to spring up in her heart. The giant ape's eyes were glowing red when he saw Ayaka, and in a frenzy, he threw away the big tree in his hand and attacked Ayaka. There was a flash of coldness in her eyes, and the corners of Ayaka's mouth couldn't help but rise slightly, completely ignoring the giant ape in her eyes. She gently leaped up into the air, making the giant ape's huge arm tossed in empty. The giant ape roared angrily towards the sky, and a wave of ki shot out from its mouth. When you lose your mind, how can you still use ki waves? Ayaka was slightly surprised. She then knocked the giant ape's ki wave to the other direction with one hand. Boom! The ki wave hit a hill with a massive explosion, and a mushroom cloud rose far away. After turning into a giant ape, your power level has increased 10 times. In that exchange just now, Ayaka accurately saw that the giant ape transformation Son Goku had a power level of 430, 10 times more than usual. This power level is already comparable to the strength of Son Goku at the beginning of the Dragon Ball Z saga. Although the giant ape was a tremendous weapon of the Saiyan and could make the Saiyan strength surge by more than 10 times, such strength surge was limited in the Dragon Ball main story. The strength after the wave wouldn't continue to grow after reaching the 100,000 power level. In other words, the giant ape was only suitable for Saiyans with a power level below 100,000. After the strength exceeded 100,000 power levels, even with the giant ape transformation, the power growth was minimal. Instead, because of the vast clumsy body, it gave the enemy more opportunities. Although the giant ape's disadvantages were broken in the outer circle, it had been from another angle to explain the giant ape. On Ayaka's current understanding, the giant ape was the Saiyan's initial life-saving move, but the latter effect wasn't potent. Seeing that the giant ape couldn't cause damage for Ayaka, Son Goku jumped up and down violently, letting out a roar. Several waves of ki shot out from the mouth of the giant ape at once. Although it couldn't hit Ayaka, it caused significant damage to the surrounding area. Ayaka frowned slightly and thought unhappily, if I let it attack any longer, the whole Mount Paozu will be destroyed. Ayaka looked straight at the giant ape. Immediately, from Ayaka's body emerged a powerful aura that overwhelmed the mountains. It was like a giant dragon flying out of the abyss, constantly hissing and roaring. The ground began to shake, and the sky's bright white moon seemed to lose its luster. In the powerful and compelling aura of Ayaka, the giant ape stopped the destructive actions. Its body began to tremble. Although the giant ape lost his mind, he was shocked by the tremendous sense of oppression out of instinct and couldn't move. Ayaka's hand condensed a ki blade. Suddenly, her figure flashed, instantly disappeared from the spot, and then came behind the giant ape as fast as lightning. When the giant ape failed to react, she sent a ki blade at its tail. Barf! The giant ape's tail was cut off, the thick tail fell and raised a dust cloud. The giant ape let out a big hissing sound, then fell to the ground and passed out. After the giant ape fell to the ground, its body gradually became smaller and finally returned to Son Goku's appearance. Upon looking at Son Goku lying in ruins and then look at the ground covered with cracks from his destruction, Ayaka lost her voice. She shook her head helplessly and carried Son Goku back to his room. The next day, Son Goku woke up from a coma and had no memory of what happened last night. Because his tail was cut off, Son Goku lost his balance for a moment and fell to the ground with a pop. Son Goku asked Ayaka in confusion, "Sister, why did my tail break? You can grow it back. Besides, your tail is also your weakness, isn't it good to lose it?" Ayaka was lying on the sofa in the living room, with one hand on her chin and the TV remote control in the other. Son Goku stared in disbelief, wondering how his tail broke. In his mind, he thought, since my sister said it would grow back, it doesn't matter. "Goku, how's the practice of Kamehameha and dancing sky air going?" Ayaka saw nothing good on TV, so she put down the remote control and asked Son Goku. "I've mastered them all," Son Goku said, using the dancing sky art to fly to Ayaka, moving very naturally. "Since you've mastered it all, it's time for me to take you out of here. To leave Mount Paozu." "Sister, where are we going?" Son Goku had great trust in Ayaka and had no objection to leaving Mount Paozu with her. "Sister will take you to see your grandfather's teacher, Master Roshi." Ayaka said with a light smile, "Master Roshi is known as the god of martial arts, so it would be good for him to instruct you." "Really? Grandfather's teacher? He must be mighty." Son Goku's face couldn't help but be filled with excitement when he heard Ayaka wanted to take him to see Master Roshi and had Master Roshi instruct him to train. Ayaka nodded and said, Master Roshi's strength is considered the strongest among Earthlings. He also started the Turtle School, which is the top martial arts school. Only his brother, Madorshin's Crane School, can be on par with it. Actually, Master Roshi wasn't powerful at all compared with the entire universe, but Ayaka indeed wouldn't have said it. In any case, Master Roshi was weak, but his martial arts skills were still worth learning. Your grandfather, Son Gohan, was the disciple of Master Roshi. Since you are Son Gohan's grandson, Master Roshi must be willing to instruct you. Son Goku listened, and his head kept nodding. A few days passed, and when Son Goku had utterly adapted to his tail's loss, Ayaka was ready to take him to Master Roshi. Son Goku carefully wrapped the 4-star Dragon Ball in a cloth, put it in his backpack, then took the power pole and walked out of the room. Don't you want to take something else? Ayaka saw Son Goku only carried a backpack with empty hands, so she couldn't help but ask. I'll just take Grandpa with me. Son Goku replied. Ayaka nodded without saying anything. Even if Son Goku didn't bring anything, the usual clothes were stored inside her capsule house. By pressing the room's button, poof, a cloud of white smoke rose, and the room turned into a capsule. Ayaka picked up the capsule on the ground, put it into her travel bag, and then flew up in the air with Son Goku. Master Roshi was known as the god of martial arts, a disciple of Master Mateto from a generation 300 years ago. Nowadays, Master Roshi and his brother, Master Shen, were the pinnacles of martial artists on Earth. Master Roshi only took 2 disciples in the early days, which were Son Gohan and Ox King. Now he was no longer accepting disciples and was living alone on an island offshore. According to the original story, Ayaka brought Son Goku to a city first and then found the town where Master Roshi later took Son Goku with Krillin to deliver milk. After arriving at the town, Ayaka determined the location of Master Roshi by inquiring the residents of the town. The sea was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the sparkling light under the sunlight. 2 black shadows flew rapidly over the sea in the distance, both carrying a whirlwind behind them. After the flight, the whirlwind split the calm sea and swept up 2 fierce wake currents. After flying for a while, Son Goku asked Ayaka, Sister, are we still not there? Ayaka looked at the nearby islands and said lightly, It should be near here. The 2 continued to fly in the vicinity, looking for Master Roshi's house according to the villager's description in town, and soon saw a small island. There it is. Ayaka pointed to an island with a pink house built and said, That's Kame house where Master Roshi's lives. After flying for so long, they finally found their target. Ayaka took Son Goku's hand and rushed towards Kame house with a sharp speed, splashing a high wave behind them. At this time, Master Roshi was wearing sunglasses, lying on a cool chair in the sun. Suddenly, he saw a lovely young girl with a young boy fell from the sky and came to his side. Dancing sky art. Master Roshi exclaimed in surprise. He couldn't imagine that the 2 people in front of him were using the stance of his arch-rival, Master Shen. Could it be that they are Crane School's disciples who have come to trouble me? Master Roshi carefully looked up the 2. At first, there was a hint of caution, but he was soon charmed by Ayaka's beauty, and an obscene smile appeared on his face. Oh! But this little girl is so cute. No, my nose is bleeding. Son Goku was stunned by Master Roshi's lewd appearance and quickly asked Ayaka, What's wrong with this old grandpa? Is he okay? Nothing, he just has too much energy. Ayaka said disdainfully. She had a horrible smile on her face, and her face was gloomy as she thought, How dare he look at me with such lewd eyes? This debt will be recorded first. Old grandpa, are you Master Roshi? My name is Ayaka, this is Son Gohan's grandson, Son Goku. Ayaka put on a sunny bright smile, pulling Son Goku, and said, He is here to learn martial arts from you. Gohan's grandson. Master Roshi put away his vulgar expression and looked up at Son Goku with a straight face. As a top martial artist on Earth, he felt unusual ki in Son Goku. This child has very pure ki. The ki of the turtle school. Gohan used to say that he adopted a child, that's him, right? Yes. Ayaka nodded and answered for Son Goku. I can't believe that Gohan adopted a beautiful girl like you in addition to a boy. Ayaka shook her head and said, Son Gohan does not adopt me. Son Goku and I are not real siblings. I see. Master Roshi nodded. How is Gohan now? Why did he not come to see me? Grandpa has been dead for several years. Son Goku's voice was low and somewhat sadly. He died. Master Roshi was surprised for a moment, then sighed, feeling sad that his disciple passed away early. His eyes then turned to Ayaka, with a rare gaze that did not carry any lustful look. Little girl, what you just used was the dancing sky art of the Crane School. Are you a disciple of the Crane School? Ayaka said with her usual face and without a trace of pride, no. I developed that on my own. I don't know that Crane School you're talking about. Did you completely self-taught and developed the dancing sky art? Master Roshi was slightly stunned. To have developed the dancing sky art at such a young age, what a qualification. He carefully stared at Ayaka, and saw that she was not lying, so he exclaimed, Little girl, you are outstanding. Not only that, but Son Goku also knows Kamehameha. Ayaka said. Really? Upon hearing that Son Goku could use Kamehameha, Master Roshi's eyes sprouted golden light. Son Goku, let me see your Kamehameha. Son Goku turned his head to Ayaka. After seeing Ayaka nod gently, Son Goku set up his pose and made the starting stance of Kamehameha. Kamehameha. Son Goku shouted softly. He formed his hands into claws, then slowly leaned them together. He used the ki in his body and slowly gathered it into his hands, and a feeling of oppression was released from Son Goku's body. Ha! More ki gathered above the two claws, gradually making the air produce a transparent distortion. The body's ki was like a fierce tiger out of the cage, unbridled play out. Ki. Son Goku slowly put away his hands and then moved to the waist. The ki condensed in the hands gradually piled up. Finally, the quantity became a quality change. The ki was transformed into a ki wave, which emitted a dazzling blue light in his hands. Wave. After pushing the ki wave at his waist fiercely forward, his claws unfolded. A powerful ki wave was fired out abruptly, and the dazzling blue light shone so brightly that people had to close their eyes. The Kamehameha kept shooting forward along the sea surface. The super high speed brought up an intense whirlwind and stirred up a straight line of waves. Master Roshi saw Son Goku make authentic Kamehameha and couldn't help but smile happily. It's an excellent Kamehameha. Son Goku, did Son Gohan teach you this? After looking at such a small child, who could use Kamehameha, Master Roshi knew that Turtle School had outstanding disciples. It was impossible to send out Kamehameha without 50 years of training. So, this could be concluded that the child's qualifications were quite good. Grandpa didn't teach me. My sister is the one who taught me Kamehameha and the dancing sky art. Son Goku told the truth. Your sister taught you. Master Roshi turned his gaze to Ayaka, wondering where she learned it from. Ayaka saw that it was about to be worn out and quickly explained, Son Goku's grandfather once helped me, and also taught me Kamehameha. Then I climbed Korin Tower, and I developed the dancing sky art from Korin. This statement was wholly made up, but no one would check, it was considered a better excuse. After hearing Ayaka climbed up Korin Tower to meet Korin, Master Roshi didn't doubt it. It was amazing to be able to accept Korin's instruction and develop the dancing sky art. Then what is the purpose of your visit to me? Master Roshi asked. Ayaka finally got to the point and smiled, all I can teach Goku is the use of ki and combat techniques. After all, my training style is not suitable for him. So I want Master Roshi to take Goku as your disciple and instruct him in his training. Take him as a disciple. Seeing that Son Goku was looking at him expectantly, Master Roshi stroked his hairless head. He nodded with a silly smile. It's not bad to accept a disciple with such outstanding strength like him. Well, I'll take Son Goku. From now on, Son Goku will be under my guidance to train. Master Roshi tapped the palm of his hand as he decided to accept Son Goku as a disciple. Ayaka sighed with relief, and a faint smile appeared on her face. She thought she had completed her mission. Son Goku was also happy when he saw Master Roshi was willing to teach him to practice. At this point, Master Roshi crept to the side of Ayaka. He put his hand on Ayaka's thin waist and said in a lewd manner, "Ayaka, your brother has worshipped me as a teacher. Don't you want to join him? I do not mind taking you as a disciple." With that, Master Roshi placed his hand on Ayaka's waist and gently stroked it. Ayaka felt Master Roshi touch her thin waist, and her face suddenly became gloomy. "Old man, how dare you to take advantage of this lady? Go to hell." With that said, she punched Master Roshi on the chin, sending him flying into the sky, turning into a shiny point. Son Goku slowly arranged his clothes inside the Kame house, while Ayaka sat on the sofa looking at magazines. It was just that Master Roshi only had women's fitness magazines here. On the side, Master Roshi, covering his injured jaw, kept offering his courtesy to Ayaka, trying to make Ayaka his disciple. Looking at the lecherous old man who kept offering, Ayaka gloomily flipped the magazine in her hand, sighs, "I'm starting to regret bringing Son Goku here." After learning the news that Ayaka would be staying temporarily, Master Roshi's emotions instantly rose. He decided to instruct Son Goku in his training immediately. He rummaged through the cupboard, retrieved a bulky turtle shell from under the bed, and made Son Goku carry it on his back. This turtle shell was about 50 kilograms, so after putting the turtle shell on his back, Son Goku's movement suddenly became slower. Ayaka saw Master Roshi instructing Son Goku and was happy to see it. She then turned on the TV to watch. Of course, Ayaka was hoping to learn the martial arts techniques on Earth, but currently, what Master Roshi's teaching to Son Goku was too superficial. It didn't involve a high level of mastery. She had mastered it long ago, so she didn't bother to follow it. On the beach in front of Kame House, Son Goku was on the ground doing push-ups with a turtle shell on his back, while Master Roshi sat on Son Goku's back. He occasionally tapped Son Goku's hands and feet with his cane to criticize his movements. Ayaka was lying on a beach chair with her eyes closed, but her heart always paid attention to Master Roshi's teaching to Son Goku. As a Saiyan, Ayaka had her training system set, and her strength was far beyond Master Roshi's. However, Master Roshi's training set was very effective, especially the proper use of ki. It's worth learning from. It had been more than a few months since she came to Kame House. During that time, Ayaka kept observing the training methods of Master Roshi and had memorized the training methods of Turtle School. Unfortunately, Turtle School's practice was only suitable for Earthlings with low power levels and didn't have much effect on the Saiyan, whose power level was close to 140,000. It couldn't be said that there was no effect, but it was just hard to see the impact of that slight degree of exercise. Turtle School training method is indeed able to lay a good foundation. Unfortunately, that little exercise has been unable to let me get a big breakthrough. Ayaka looked at Son Goku's sweaty face, inwardly sighed, "Should I go to create the gravity chamber?" Ayaka remembered Vegeta's hard work inside the small space of the gravity chamber in the original story, but the gravity chamber is too bulky, and that kind of training is not suitable for girls to practice. Should she find a giant planet with high gravity to continue her practice? However, when she thought about it, she felt that it was too homogeneous. Although the effect was good, it seemed that relying on the same training method all the time wouldn't be conducive to an all-round improvement. Suddenly, Ayaka thought of inspiration. If I use the Dragon Balls to ask Shinran to create a multifunctional battle suit, then it will solve a lot of problems. This thought excited Ayaka. In addition to her gender factor, there are two main problems that confused her. The first problem was how to strengthen her power further. Turtle School training method was very effective, but unfortunately not suitable for high-intensity training. So, in the original story, Son Goku and others, by coincidence, used the gravity chamber approach to achieve high-intensity exercise and then supplemented by the Turtle School method of training so that the strength soared. The second problem that plagued Ayaka was bursting clothes caused by the impact of energy during the battle. In the original story's late battle, the training clothes couldn't resist the effects of powerful energy, making them fight naked. As a girl, Ayaka didn't want to explode in battle and to be left naked. If she used the Dragon Balls to create a set of battle armor that could change gravity and instantly repair the damaged parts when fighting, it would be a perfect solution to Ayaka's two problems. Ayaka didn't ask Shinron to make a battle armor that could resist energy attacks and didn't damage it because she knew that the power of Shinron couldn't do that. Therefore, the second best thing to do was to let Shinron make a battle armor that could recover instantly after an energy attack, so at least no one could see her body. Upon thinking of this, Ayaka suddenly had an urgent desire to immediately collect the Dragon Balls and summon Shinron to fulfill her wishes. During dinner, Ayaka told Son Goku and Master Roshi that she wanted to go out. Son Goku was a little reluctant about it. Ayaka then smiled and said, "I'm just leaving for a while, I'll be back in a few years." Master Roshi had long known that people like Ayaka could not live permanently in Kame House and did not think much of her leaving. He just thought it was a pity that such a lovely girl had gone. "By the way, Goku, I want to borrow your 4-star Dragon Ball for a while, I will definitely give you back later." Ayaka asked Son Goku for the 4-star Dragon Ball. Son Goku nodded in agreement and reluctantly gave Ayaka the 4-star Dragon Ball in his chest pouch. "Do not worry, a year at most 2 years I will be back," Ayaka said with a smile. She then turned her gaze to Master Roshi, and her face changed like the fickle weather, saying, "Old man, give me your Dragon Ball too." Master Roshi faintly froze, but as if he was used to seeing Ayaka's bossy in recent times, he pulled out the Dragon Ball hanging around his neck and asked, "I found this little ball in the sea before. I think it's special so I've been carrying it. Does it do anything?" "No." Ayaka denied it. In the original story, Bulma got Dragon Balls by showing him her panties. However, Bulma didn't know that she wasn't wearing panties at that time, so it was a tragedy for Bulma that a young girl's critical part was looked at by a horny old man, 2 or 3 times in a row. If she let Master Roshi know the Dragon Ball's role, she wondered what he would ask from her. However, Ayaka still underestimated the wisdom of Master Roshi. He had already judged from Ayaka's attitude that the Dragon Balls must have some significance. So he lewdly said to Ayaka, "Little Ayaka, as long as you kiss me, I will give it to you, how about it?" Ayaka heard this and was instantly enraged. A few veins sprouted from her forehead as she gritted her teeth and said, "Damn, old man, you want to die." Feeling the anger in Ayaka's words and a powerful murderous aura, Master Roshi sarcastically untied the rope around his neck and handed the Dragon Ball to Ayaka. "That's more like it." After getting the Dragon Balls, Ayaka used the dancing sky art to float in the air. She then said to Son Goku and Master Roshi, "I will come back within 2 years. Goku, you have to train well. Old man, teach Goku well, and do not teach him those messy things, or watch out for your skeleton." After saying that, she didn't wait for Master Roshi to react. Instead, Ayaka gave an explosive power, turned into a shadow, and quickly disappeared in front of Son Goku and Master Roshi's sight. When Ayaka's figure disappeared, Master Roshi breathed a sigh of relief. "Goku, this young lady of yours is horrible. It's a pity that such a lovely appearance has such a bad personality and does not know how to respect the elderly." Ayaka left Kame House and ran directly to the West City. At this time, Bulma was just over 12 years old and shouldn't be able to create Dragon Ball radar. So, Ayaka was looking for Bulma's father Dr. Brief, to ask him to help make Dragon Ball radar. Ayaka's speed was breakneck, and in just a moment, she was already in the sky above the West City. Ayaka landed in an alley when no one was looking and then began to inquire about the Capsule Corporation headquarters address. West City was a bustling city with technology nearly 150 years more advanced than other cities, which was an incredible gap. There were all kinds of strange spherical buildings and air train tracks in the West City, an abstract overpass crisscrossed with hovering jet vehicles. With her lovely appearance, Ayaka easily asked pedestrians for the Capsule Corporation headquarters address. According to the address, Ayaka found the Capsule Corporation and then looked up where Dr. Brief lived. Bulma's home was a 4-story hemispherical building covering a vast area. Around the house were planted various flowers and trees, which looked like a wealthy family's residence. Ayaka pressed the doorbell. Shortly afterward, Dr. Briefs, covered with oil stains, came out of the indoor laboratory with a cigarette in his mouth and opened the door. Upon seeing Ayaka at the door, Dr. Brief noticed that the young girl in front of him was about the same age as his daughter Bulma. He then asked with some surprise, "Young lady, are you Bulma's classmate?" "Bulma is not at home right now." Ayaka shook her head, "No, Dr. Brief. I'm not here to see your daughter, I'm here to see you. Are you looking for me?" Dr. Briefs was a little surprised, not sure what the young girl in front of him wanted to see him about. "Come in and talk." He smiled as he led Ayaka inside. "Help yourself to anything you need." "Sorry, can you let me finish the task at hand first?" Ayaka smiled and nodded, then sat on the sofa and watched TV. Half an hour later, Dr. Brief finished his business and came to Ayaka after washing up. "May I ask what you want from me, miss?" Ayaka took out the 2 Dragon Balls in her hand, and the 2 Dragon Balls emitted a golden glow from time to time when they were put together. "I am trying to ask you to create a radar that can detect the special electric waves emitted by these 2 Dragon Balls." Dr. Brief picked up a Dragon Ball and curiously poked around. "I think I should be able to create a radar that detects its special signal, but it will take a few weeks." Upon hearing that Dr. Brief was willing to help make a Dragon Ball radar, a smile appeared on Ayaka's face, and she politely thanked Dr. Brief. At that moment, Bulma's mother came over with fruits and entertained Ayaka. "Ah. Little sister is so cute, have you got a boyfriend?" Our Bulma still refuses to have a boyfriend until now. Listening to Bulma's mother, Ayaka didn't know how to say something. So, she just smiled politely. "Ah, do you have a place to stay?" "How about staying here?" she asked Ayaka. "Bulma would be very happy to have you here. It would be nice for her to have someone to play with." "Thank you for the offer, but I already have a place to stay." Ayaka refused the offer with a smile. Refusing to stay with Bulma's parents, Ayaka found a hotel nearby and stayed there. After a good wash with hot water to remove all the dust, Ayaka wrapped in a bathrobe lying on the bed, thinking, "I have 2 of the 7 Dragon Balls in my hands now. I only know that there is one in the hands of the Ox King. The Dragon Balls in Bulma and Tien Shinhan's hands should not be obtained and may still be somewhere else. It seems that I still need to wait for Dr. Brief to build the Dragon Ball radar." Ayaka intended to stop thinking about these things. To not affect the journey of Son Goku and Bulma's search for the Dragon Balls, she had to send it back to Ox King after she used it. The next day, Ayaka came to the Capsule Corporation. The Capsule Corporation headquarters had something that was not available in other cities. Ayaka especially came here to spend a lot of money to repurchase a villa. This villa was very similar to Bulma's house, which was also a hemispherical house with many glass windows. The house had a total of 4 floors, which had more than 30 rooms. Counting the living room, kitchen, bathroom, etc., there were more than 50 small areas. Ayaka spent a lot of money arranging each room with electricity, curtains, sofas, etc. The final total cost was about 600 million. After swipe 600 million from the card, Ayaka thought with pain, there are 360 million deposits, and a better house costs 600 million. This money indeed doesn't last long. Upon turning this huge villa into a capsule to carry around his waist, Ayaka began to wander around the West City. West City, as one of the most technologically advanced cities on Earth, had many amusement facilities. Ayaka went to several amusement parks and took pictures at some famous attractions. When she finally was bored, she went to a clothing store and tried on a lot of beautiful clothes and fully lived a hanger addiction. 2 weeks passed, and once again, Ayaka came to Bulma's house. She rang the doorbell, and this time it was Bulma who opened the door. A little girl with blue hair and wearing casual clothes appeared in front of Ayaka. Ayaka knew Bulma was a good girl. Just because the pre-Dragon Ball definition was a funny manga, it was inevitable to make Bulma look a little naive. Since entering the Dragon Ball Z, the change in style also reflects Bulma's gentle and virtuous side. Her husband, Vegeta, was also considered a loving and supportive person. At least they were happier than Son Goku and Chi-Chi, who shared more days. Bulma saw a beautiful young girl standing in front of the door and asked, "Miss, who are you looking for?" Ayaka smiled and said, "You are Bulma. I'm here to see your father, Dr. Brief. I'm here to ask if the radar Dr. Brief made is finished yet. You're the one who asked Dad to make that strange radar. These days Dad has been working on those 2 beads, and the radar is almost finished." With that, Bulma led Ayaka into the living room and then asked her mother to entertain Ayaka while calling Dr. Brief. As soon as Bulma's mother saw Ayaka's arrival, she warmly brought out drinks to entertain her. In a short while, Dr. Brief came over with the Dragon Ball radar and 2 Dragon Balls. "Little girl, these 2 beads of yours are magical, they glow golden on their own whenever they touch together. I haven't found the reason for their glow until now." With that, Dr. Brief handed over the Dragon Ball and the Dragon Ball radar to Ayaka. "This is the radar you want. Although it can already find the mysterious signal emitted by these 2 balls, I always feel that something is missing. If you want to add the music playing feature, why don't you wait for 2 more days and let me perfect it?" Seeing that Dr. Brief was still dwelling on his strange aesthetics, Ayaka couldn't help but lose her voice and laugh lightly. Measuring up the Dragon Ball radar in his hand, Dr. Brief made a Dragon Ball radar very similar to the one of Bulma but more perfect than Bulma's. In addition to the zoom-in and zoom-out function of the signal, it was specially equipped with a global map so that it would be easier to find the Dragon Balls. Ayaka looked at the Dragon Ball radar in her hand with satisfaction and said gratefully, "No need to add that function. This Dragon Ball radar is now perfect. Thank you very much," Ayaka said, bowing to Bulma's father to express her gratitude. Dr. Brief laughed and rubbed his head with his hand. He was happy to have completed another invention. As for receiving money, he had never thought about it. At that moment, Bulma curiously surveyed the Dragon Ball and asked Ayaka, "Miss, what is this strange ball of yours for?" Ayaka smiled and said, "Bulma, we are all the same age, you can call me Ayaka." Bulma was startled and looked at Ayaka with a surprised expression. This tall, beautiful, and pretty young girl was the same age as her. With such a comparison, Bulma immediately became frustrated. She lost, no matter what aspect of the body. She had lost. These 2 balls are called Dragon Balls, a magical item made by Kami. It is said that if one collects all 7 of these balls distributed throughout the world, one will be able to summon Shinran to fulfill any of the summoner's wishes that do not exceed Kami's ability. For example, becoming the richest man in the world, becoming a head of state, or regaining your youth, Shinran will be able to fulfill it for you easily. So amazing! Bulma's eyes glowed in amazement after heard Ayaka's explanation. Even Dr. Brief's face showed a look of surprise. Bulma pleaded with Ayaka and said, "Then Ayaka, can you take me with you to find the Dragon Balls?" Ayaka shook her head with difficulty. "No, the journey to find the Dragon Balls is full of danger, you are still young, wait a few more years. When you are 16 years old, we are traveling together, how about it?" Dr. Brief also thought that Ayaka had a point. He certainly didn't feel comfortable letting his daughter go out. "Miss Ayaka has a good point. Wait until you're a little older before you go, then Mom and Dad can also rest assured." Bulma shook her head, dissatisfied. Isn't Ayaka also look for the Dragon Ball alone? She and I are the same age, even when she is bigger than I am, she's not much older. I am different. I am a friend of Master Roshi, and he's powerful. I know you're not afraid of those dangers, but you don't have the same strength as me. So, you should go out again in a few years. Ayaka patiently explained. Bulma didn't believe for a second that Ayaka would have great strength. However, being under the control of his parents, she could only give up the idea of going out with Ayaka to find the Dragon Balls. Ayaka took the Dragon Ball radar and pressed the search button. Beep, beep, beep. After a few sounds, the radar screen shows the location of the 7 Dragon Balls. The red triangle center showed where she was with 2 points of the Dragon Ball signal. On the map next to it was also marked with the words West City. With the specially added map, it was much easier to find the Dragon Balls. Ayaka smiled and said goodbye to the Bulma family and then flew up in the air. Whoosh! With that, Ayaka disappeared from their sight, leaving the already dumbfounded Bulma family. How can Ayaka fly? Bulma stammered. It seems that Miss Ayaka really has a special ability. No wonder she dares to travel the world alone. Dr. Brief wiped the frames of his glasses and said with a calm look. Bulma, you don't have that kind of power, so stay at home for the next few years. Bulma nodded with a downcast look and a secret resolve. In a few years, I will make my own Dragon Ball radar and go in search of the Dragon Balls. After leaving Bulma's house, Ayaka flew towards the place shown on the Dragon Ball radar. The first stop she had to make was the Fire Mountain where the Ox King lived. According to the Dragon Ball radar, Ayaka soon arrived at the Fire Mountain. At this time, the Fire Mountain had not been covered by the Earth's core flames. On the top of the Fire Mountain was built a lofty castle. The Ox King was the second disciple of Master Roshi, and his heart was good. It was just his rugged appearance and that unique outfit that made him look like a demon king. Nearby villagers were afraid of the Ox King and did not dare to step into the Fire Mountain where he lived. Ayaka flew directly over Fire Mountain and then landed on the castle. She surveyed the lofty old castle in front of her and thought to herself, I can't believe the Ox King is still a tycoon. If flames hadn't destroyed this castle in the end, Chi-Chi would have inherited a family fortune full of money and wouldn't have had such a hard time living afterward. Who's there? From behind the stone pillar came a girl's soft voice. A little girl with a helmet on her head, a cloak behind her, and a strange dress came out. The little girl was about 8 or 9 years old. She had some panic in her eyes as she forced herself to look at Ayaka calmly. Is this Chi-Chi? Ayaka looked at the little girl, and her thoughts jumped quickly. Ayaka was impressed by this girl who could be called Son Goku's childhood sweetheart. Because she didn't understand love as a child and made a marriage contract with Son Goku, she kept her childhood promise to find Son Goku and marry him as an adult. Ayaka had a very great affection for Chi-Chi. Although her love for Son Goku was too simple, Son Goku once sent her an apple to make her blush for a long time. Therefore, Chi-Chi's life was dedicated to Son Goku and their family. However, in the original story, Son Goku died, leaving her 2 sons to raise alone, while the Ox King left behind a fortune but only enough, so she was living a hard life. However, Ayaka felt that Goku was quite sorry for Chi-Chi. Ayaka looked at Chi-Chi with a smile. I am a friend of your father's teacher, Master Roshi, and I am here to find your father. Are you here to see Dad? Chi-Chi asked, puzzled. She thought about it and felt that Ayaka did not look like a bad person. So, when she heard that she was looking for her father, she led Ayaka towards the lobby. In the hall, the Ox King sat at the dining table, nibbling on a piece of meat in his hand, while a servant on the side carefully handed over a tray of dinner plates. Seeing his daughter entered with a strange young girl, the Ox King put down the food in his hand. Daughter, this is the freshly slaughtered beef. Do you want to try it? He said and ate by himself, chewing beef in his mouth, and asked vaguely, who is this young girl? Your friend. She said she is a friend of Master Roshi and is here to find you, Daddy, Chi-Chi said in a small voice as she refused the Ox King's offer. Master Roshi's friend? The Ox King brushed himself up, throwing away the meat piece in his hand and coming to Ayaka. Are you really a friend of Master Roshi? The Ox King had respect for Master Roshi. The only ones who could make him so respectful were his teacher, Master Roshi, and his senior brother, son Gohan. Ayaka nodded. To make the Ox King believe in her, Ayaka significantly extended her palm and condensed a ki wave in the palm of her hand. At that time, only Crane School disciple could use ki waves, other than Kamehameha, on Earth. My name is Ayaka. You see, this is Kamehameha. Ayaka smiled and said. The Ox King looked at the blue ki wave emitting from Ayaka's hand and nodded his head. Yes, this is Master Roshi's signature technique Kamehameha. So, you are really Master Roshi's friend. I wonder what purpose Master Roshi asked for you to find me. The Ox King asked. It's not that Master Roshi is looking for you, instead, I want to ask you a favor. The Ox King asked with a curious face, Little girl, you are powerful, what else do you need my help with? Since Ayaka could use Kamehameha, then her strength should be above him. Ayaka took out a Dragon Ball and asked the Ox King, according to my radar, you should have a ball just like this one here. I hope you can lend it to me. After listening to this, the Ox King picked up the Dragon Ball and put it in front of his eyes to look at it carefully. He then vaguely seemed to have that impression, but he forgot where he had put it. The Ox King smiled nervously in embarrassment and returned the Dragon Ball to Ayaka. I remember that there seems to be such a thing, but I did not pay much attention to it, and now I forgot where I put it. Ayaka took the Dragon Ball, shook her head, and said, it does not matter as long as you have it here. I have the Dragon Ball radar so that we can find it quickly. She said and pressed the button of the Dragon Ball radar to narrow the search area gradually. According to the radar display, the Ox King took Ayaka to the treasure trove. After he pushed open the door of the treasure trove, Ayaka saw a pile of gold and silver treasures inside and was immediately shocked by the wealth of the Ox King. He is wealthy. Not less than what I got from the treasure trove under the sea. Ayaka searched in a pile of gold and silver treasures, and in a short time, she found the Dragon Ball buried underneath. The surface of the Dragon Ball still shone brightly with a golden light. After putting the Dragon Ball into the pouch at her waist, Ayaka happily said to the Ox King, thank you so much. I'll send it back when I'm done with it. That little ball looks a little special. If you want it, take it, no need to return it. The Ox King gave the Dragon Ball to Ayaka without care. How can that be? I will return the Dragon Ball when I'm done with it. Ayaka shook her head. She knew that if the Dragon Balls were not returned, Son Goku and Bulma might not come to Fire Mountain in the future, and then the marriage between Goku and Chi-Chi wouldn't happen. Although the Dragon Ball plot inevitably changed because of her arrival, Goku and Chi-Chi's marriage couldn't be broken. Upon thinking about Son Goku and Chi-Chi's marriage, Ayaka brightened up and could not help but want to help set them up. She gazed at Chi-Chi, and said softly to the Ox King, Uncle, I have a brother named Son Goku, who is the grandson of Master Roshi's great disciple, Son Gohan. He is about the same age as Chi-Chi, and now was training under Master Roshi. I want to see if I can get Chi-Chi together with him in the future, what do you think? When the Ox King heard this, he became interested. He's the grandson of Brother Gohan, who is now practicing under Master Roshi. The Ox King looked at his daughter Chi-Chi, then quietly asked Ayaka, how is that kid named Son Goku in person? How is his strength? Ayaka immediately patted her chest and gave a guarantee, don't worry, Goku is a simple person with outstanding strength. He has long since learned Kamehameha. Such a good son-in-law hitting the lantern are hard to find. Later, I will bring Goku for you to see. If by then Chi-Chi has no opinion, we will set the marriage between the two of them, how about it? Ayaka promoted Son Goku to the Ox King. When the time comes, if Chi-Chi is okay with it, of course, I agree. The Ox King was still more concerned about Chi-Chi, so, everything was always based on Chi-Chi's opinion. However, since Son Goku was so excellent in Ayaka's mouth, he believed that there must be quite a high hope of success. In this case, Son Goku and Chi-Chi were unaware that their sister and father were already planning a lifelong event for them. At night, the castle on Fire Mountain was lit up, and to welcome Ayaka's arrival, the Ox King held a special banquet for her. During the feast, Ayaka took out a photo of herself and Son Goku, then handed it to Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi, this is my brother. His name is Son Goku. In the future, if you meet him, you should get along well. Chi-Chi took the photo, curiously looking at the image of the boy named Son Goku. She thought that Son Goku was quite photogenic and cute. At this point, Ayaka deliberately lowered her voice and said, "Maybe he is your future husband." Chi-Chi heard Ayaka's words, and her face immediately reddened. She then ran away in embarrassment. Upon seeing Chi-Chi shyly run away, Ayaka smiled leisurely. She turned back to the Ox King and said, "It seems that Chi-Chi is not opposed to this matter. It may really work out in the future." With that, Ayaka and the Ox King laughed together. As for the Chi-Chi, she was also impressed by the boy named Son Goku, who may become her husband. After getting the Dragon Ball from the Ox King, Ayaka went ahead to find the next Dragon Ball. With the Dragon Ball radar display, Ayaka came to a depression surrounded by mountains. Caw! 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 Crows cawed between the branches and swooped through the air. Mountains surrounded the small depression. Because the terrain was relatively low, there were few times when the sun shone all year round, making the entire depression seem extraordinarily deep and silent. Ayaka walked on the path covered with weeds and branches. She pulled her sweater covered with balls of thread from time to time. Looking at the sweater rolled full of thread balls, Ayaka's heart was very depressed. Originally, I looked good in this style and bought it, but I cannot imagine that it has become like this so quickly. After looking up at the sky covered by the shade of the trees above her, Ayaka could only speed up her steps to find the Dragon Ball that had fallen nearby and get out of here as soon as possible. Roar! A roar sounded ahead. The roar produced several echoes, and the echoes kept spreading out in the depression as a flock of startled birds flew through the sky. Ayaka looked at the sound and saw a large black bear appeared in front of her. Ayaka did not want to pay attention to the black bear and wanted to go around and leave. However, the black bear saw Ayaka and rushed towards her as if it saw food. Ayaka frowned and gave the black bear an unpleasant look, a cold chill flashed in her eyes. Huff and puff. The black bear hurriedly stopped, feeling the eerie coldness in Ayaka's eyes. It then ran in the opposite direction with a whimpering sound from its mouth. Turns out it still has the sense. Seeing the black bear farting away, Ayaka could not help but smile and then walk towards the depression. After walking for about half an hour, Ayaka stopped and looked at the Dragon Ball radar in his hand, which showed 4 Dragon Balls in the center. After subtracting the 3 that Ayaka carried with her, the 4th Dragon Ball was nearby. Ayaka looked around but found no trace of the Dragon Ball and could not help but feel strange. The radar shows that the Dragon Ball is in this place. How come I didn't find it? Ayaka rummaged around again in the nearby grass, shrubs, and piles of debris but still couldn't find any. Right. Ayaka remembered, in the original story, the Dragon Ball seemed to be found in a bird's nest. Could this Dragon Ball also be inside the bird's nest in the tree? Ayaka used dancing sky art to leave the ground and came to a position equal to the tree's height, then began to look up. Sure enough, on top of a large tree, she found a bird's nest, and inside the nest, in addition to 2 giant eggs, there was an orange Dragon Ball. Ayaka picked up the Dragon Ball, and her heart was happy, so there are 4 Dragon Balls in my hand. If I find 3 more, I can summon Shinron. With that in mind, Ayaka flew high into the sky and headed for the next target. With the more advanced Dragon Ball radar, Ayaka found the 5th and 6th Dragon Balls in the gravel mountain in the desert, respectively. She then flew towards the location where the last Dragon Ball was located. According to the radar, the last Dragon Ball was located in the deep sea. Upon looking at a vast ocean with crazy waves, Ayaka smiled blandly. The last Dragon Ball was at the bottom of the ocean. Flutter. Ayaka leaped into the sea and then dived down continuously. This sea was not deep, even at the bottom of the sea, there was still the sun shining. In the ocean, the variety of coral and reefs had been shaped by the long years into various strange postures, on which absorbed or red or blue crustaceans, making the entire bottom of the ocean shows a diverse landscape. Ayaka shuttled between various colorful fish, continually surveying the surroundings, trying to find the seventh Dragon Ball. I found it. Ayaka exclaimed in surprise as she found the seventh Dragon Ball in a cluster of rock shelves covered with coral and water plants. Ayaka reached down and picked up the Dragon Ball, placing it inside a cloth bag. As the seven Dragon Ball converged, the shining light frequency accelerated as if Shinran was about to break out of its shell. Landing on a barren island, Ayaka poured out the seven Dragon Ball from the cloth bag. The seven Dragon Balls kept flickering with golden light, each flicker emitting a soft chant similar to that of Shinran. Ayaka looked at the glowing Dragon Balls on the ground and felt some uncontrollable excitement in her heart. Finally, Shinran is about to be summoned. Come out, Shenron. Ayaka shouted to the Dragon Balls with her heart full of expectation. At once, the sky resounded with several thunder sounds and a large swath of dark clouds dense over. The overwhelming dark clouds converged as if they were mountains and soon obscured the entire sky, causing the surrounding area to fall into a terrifying darkness. Boom! The golden lightning seemed like an angry dragon, weaving in and out of the dark black clouds, cutting straight down. The roar of thunder was deafening as if the world was ending. The golden light shining from the Dragon Balls became bigger and brighter, echoing the sky's golden lightning. At this time, the distance between the sky and the ground seemed to be brought closer. It was no longer possible to tell where the sky was and where the ground was. Ayaka was also stunned by this seemingly apocalyptic scene. The scene is really imposing as Shinran coming out. Roar! The seven Dragon Balls burst out at once with a large amount of golden light. The golden light snaked and soared towards the sky, merging with the lightning in the sky. A vast dragon roar resounded through the world, and Ayaka knew that Shinran had appeared. In the sky, the green Shinran kept circling among the black clouds and finally stared at Ayaka with eyes that shone red. Human, say your wish, I can fulfill any of your wishes. Ayaka held down the excitement in her heart. She took out a box of 100 sets of clothes, including underwear to jackets, hair bands to shoes, and all of them were the most innovative and popular in the market. Shinran, please transform my 100 sets of clothing into a battle armor that can freely change the weight and can instantly restore the broken parts. Shinran looked at Ayaka in silence for a long time before speaking. Sorry, this wish cannot be granted. Your wish contains 2 wishes, and you can only choose one of them. Ayaka couldn't help but roll her eyes. Shinran wasn't generally intelligent, and it distinguished. Initially, she wanted to write a paper full of requests and then let Shinran fulfill them. Shinran in the Dragon Ball world was like Judge Lu with a human touch. Since Shinran could only grant one of the wishes above, Ayaka had to take stock of it. After a brief thought, Ayaka said to Shinran, Shinran, please turn all my 100 sets of clothing into clothing that can freely change the weight. In Ayaka thought, the original story's first wish was utterly wasted by Oolong after 4 years. So, it would be better to add the repair function to his clothes at that time. Now, the weight-bearing function was more needed to enhance her power level a lot in 4 years. Easy. Shenron's eyes emitted a red glow, and then all of the 100 sets of clothing in the box shone white. Ayaka picked up a sleeveless jacket, found that the jacket had become different. There was a special aura that entered Ayaka's body. Shinran said, this 100 sets of clothing have gone through the key recognition. In the future, only you can use it. When using it, silently recite the load weight to it. Your wish has been granted, so goodbye. After saying that, Shinran turned back into 7 Dragon Balls, then spun in the sky a few times before flying towards the world. Ayaka did not notice because she was experimenting with her clothes, and only after the Dragon Balls flew away did she come back to her senses. Damn, I can't believe I forgot to stop the Dragon Balls. Ayaka regretted it a little. Just now, she did not stop the Dragon Balls. They now had turned into stones and flown around the world, and if she wanted to use it again, she would have to wait until a year later. I can only use the Dragon Balls again in a year. However, she should get Son Goku's 4-star Dragon Ball and the one from the Ox King back. Ayaka unbuttoned the clothes on her body sharply, took off all the clothes on her body, and then changed into the underwear and jacket that Shinran had transformed, then finally put on the boots after she took out an orange ribbon and tied it around her neck. With the attractive figure of Ayaka in adolescence, she looked extraordinarily vibrant and beautiful, youthful and beautiful. Ayaka was delighted with her outfit, which brought out her beautiful side in its entirety. She then changed the clothes' weight silently, and in an instant, Ayaka's body felt like a mountain. Her hands and feet were bound by the heavy clothes and collapsed down, causing the ground to split into tiny cracks and plunging nearly half of her 2 feet into the ground. Although the clothes on my body produced a huge weight, their shape did not change at all. There was not the slightest downward pressure, as if those weights did not exist at all. Ayaka moved her body's ki and gently lifted her body against the massive weight that the weight-bearing suit brought to the ground. The weight-bearing suit was not simply weight-bearing. Ayaka experimented and found that the weight-bearing suit's gravity was not caused by the gravitational force of the clothes and the ground but was generated on the entire space. So, even if she moved into the universe, she could still feel the gravity of the weight-bearing suit. The weight of the weight-bearing suit itself did not change. However, when it was worn on Ayaka, it gave Ayaka a considerable force, ripping space. She couldn't imagine that Shinran could create such a magical prop. Moreover, the strange thing was that gravity was very evenly distributed on every cell of the body. The higher her power level, the higher the field energy, and the greater the oppression of space. She converged her ki to half of its original level and found that half of it was still counteracting spatial pressure. With half of the effect on space, this was too unbelievable. Let's increase the weight to see. I wonder if there is an upper limit to the weight of these clothes. Ayaka became interested and continued to increase the weight of the clothes on her body. She raised the weight ton by ton and soon found the pressure of space on her did not increase. It always remained at half of the limit. Instead, Ayaka gradually felt the actual weight increase until she felt a certain pressure. Gradually, beads of sweat emerged from Ayaka's forehead. At this time, each piece of clothing on Ayaka's body had nearly 10 tons of weight, counting the body's underwear, boots, hair bands, ribbons piecemeal total of more than 100 tons of weight. These were the actual weight. Ayaka looked at the clothes on her body and thought, this time, it has become a mobile fortress. To resist the damage caused by the enormous gravity on the ground, besides carrying the weight on her body, Ayaka also used ki to support her body to prevent her body from being too heavy to cause damage to the ground. Above Korin Tower, the lookout. Kami, just now the sky turned dark all of a sudden, is it? Mr. Popo stood at the edge of the lookout and asked Kami who was watching the lower realm. Just now, the sky turned dark all of a sudden when Ayaka summoned Shinran, reminding Mr. Popo of the way Shinran was summoned decades ago. Kami frowned his wrinkled brow and said, just now, someone collected 7 Dragon Balls and summoned Shinran. Then what did that person wish for? Although Mr. Popo made Shenron's body, Mr. Popo had been holding complicated feelings about the existence of Shinran. Mr. Popo entered the pantheon earlier than Kami and understood the nature of human beings. Mr. Popo was very worried about what harm would be done to the world if the Dragon Balls fell into the hands of an evil person. The person who summoned Shinran, as you know, is the little girl who arrived on Earth a few years ago. The one from an alien planet. Cammy said slowly. Seeing Mr. Popo's somewhat surprised eyes, Cammy continued, after several years of not seeing, that child's strength should be more refined. Although there is no clear sense of ki growth, that child should be digesting and become more precise, which is scary. The wish she made was to transform her 100 sets of clothes, making it possible to change the weight freely. It seems that the child is also a martial artist who focuses on training, not an evil person. After listening to Cammy's explanation, Mr. Popo put his mind at ease. As long as evil people didn't use the Dragon Balls, it would be fine. That child's strength has refined a lot, which may not be a bad thing for Earth, Cammy said with a gleaming gaze. Cammy understood the situation, and he was already in his twilight years when he began to consider Cammy's successor. Cammy. Mr. Popo called Cammy. Mr. Popo had come to the lookout for many years and had served the previous generation of Cammy, so he had a deep affection for Cammy. Ha 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 ha. Cammy laughed out loud and said with some emotion, I was not qualified as a Cammy. I even brought the whole world a devastating disaster. He recalled the scene of Demon King Piccolo stirring up the world more than 300 years ago. Watching Cammy enter the palace with his crutches, Mr. Popo stood behind silent. He knew that Cammy had a guilty conscience towards the world, and it was not his fault. Ayaka put on the flamboyantly styled weight-bearing clothes and felt the strength she could exert now. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ayaka disappeared out of thin air and began to move at high speed, leaving countless afterimages in the world. Ayaka then stopped and sent a ki wave at the distant ocean. In a flash, the light blue ki wave emitted a gorgeous glow and cut straight across the sea level, rolling up 2 columns of huge waves and sinking a deserted island in the distance. Boom! The sound generated by the explosion came along with a shockwave, which carried a powerful storm and struck on the sea surface, sending a high mushroom cloud into the sky. After being restricted by the weight-bearing suit, probably I can only send out a small part of my original power level. Ayaka eyed the island that she destroyed and produced a mushroom cloud. Even with the restricted strength, she still had no opponent on Earth. My strength hasn't grown much in the past few years. It's almost time for my peaceful life to come to an end. Since that reborn, Ayaba's body cells were replaced entirely. Although her power level broke through to 140,000 in one fell swoop, the subsequent aftereffects also gradually emerged. First, the years on Earth were too comfortable. Second, the sequelae caused Ayaka to feel that it was difficult to raise the power level. If she had not entered puberty, which coincided with the period of Saiyan shedding, she did not know how long she had to sulk. After entering puberty, she could feel her body crackling like fried beans. The feeling of improvement was quite a lot, but the actual power level did not improve too much. Ayaka suspected that she felt too good about herself, and the reason for this should be that her soul and brand new body needed a process of refitting. It seemed that the extinction of rebirth should not be chosen as a last resort. The good thing was that Ayaka had a long lifespan, and even if she sank for a few years, there was still a day when she could sprout again. The only drawback was time. Saiyan's training system was too demanding, but the basic part was neglected. Ayaka found that her self-regulation seemed to compensate for this aspect of the deficiency after her rebirth slightly. This was an evolution. If she did it a few more times, it was estimated that she would not learn anything. Yet, she could perfect the problem of congenital deficiencies. However, how much time must be dissipated? There were gains and losses. The more significant the defect, the longer it took to fit in after rebirth. This time, she was in time for puberty, her body was in a vigorous sprout, so it only took a few years. If it hadn't been so coincidental, it might have taken longer. Ayaka didn't dare to gamble because she didn't want to die so easily. This time, the golden period should be almost over, and she felt that the weight suit was an opportunity. However, if she were strong enough, even the weight-bearing suit would be useless. Right now, it could produce a spatial compression equivalent to half of her power level and a substantial gravity boost as soon as it functioned, so maybe at some point, it would reach its upper limit. Ayaka guessed that the weight-bearing suit could probably benefit people like her whose strength did not exceed 100 million. When the power was raised to a certain point, the weight-bearing suit would lose its effect. If the weight-bearing suit was compared to a terminal, its output must have a certain limit. Now the strongest on Earth is Kami and Mr. Popo, followed by Master Rashi, Master Shen, and Mercenary Tao, so how can I make my strength more refined? Ayaka was very concerned about her strength. She trained in the Saiyan system, and the Saiyan training method had a big error based on the early stage, which was not conducive to the later stage of development. Ayaka needed to find a teacher who could guide her training. Initially, she thought she could look for guidance from Master Rashi. However, after meeting Master Rashi, she discovered that Master Rashi's training was still low-level training. It was not necessarily suitable for her. The only ones left were Kami and Mr. Popo. Ayaka wanted to go over to King Yema, but she thought better of it. Although King Yema was knowledgeable, King Yema only taught some general training directions. He could not give detailed instructions to Ayaka. Forget it. Let's go to the lookout to see Kami. In the end, Ayaka decided to go up to the lookout, seeking guidance from Kami and Mr. Popo. Swoosh! Ayaka flew up at high speed, towards the direction of the lookout. Ayaka soon arrived at the sacred land of Korin and then flew upward along with the Korin Tower, beyond the Korin Tower, and continued upward, through the heavy clouds covered with lightning. Eventually, Ayaka arrived at the hemispherical lookout located in an extremely high position in the sky. Phew! Ayaka stopped and stepped onto the lookout with one foot on the ground. Hello! Ayaka greeted the black-skinned, Arabian-like Mr. Popo in front of her. Ayaka knew that as very early life in the pantheon, Mr. Popo's strength was probably still above Kami. Looking at Mr. Popo, whose eyes were wide and colorless, Ayaka felt a lot of pressure and said in a sad voice, "Is this the real state of mind like water?" "Hello, the little girl from the alien planet." After a long time, Mr. Popo greeted. "Now I also live on Earth, just call me Ayaka." "So, Miss Ayaka, I wonder what business you have in coming to the lookout?" Mr. Popo calmly stated his question. Ayaka smiled and said, "I came to the lookout because I want Mr. Popo and Kami to instruct me in my training." Mr. Popo was stunned by Ayaka's words for a long time before he said, "Miss Ayaka's strength is far above Kami and me, how come she needs our guidance?" "Due to my training method that was too demanding, I left a big error in the foundation. I hope Mr. Popo and Kami can instruct me to make up the foundation." As for the strength, Ayaka said, secretly increased the weight on the body while restraining her power. Suddenly, her power level raised to 260, equivalent to Son Goku when he defeated Piccolo. Looking at the suppressed strength of Ayaka, Mr. Popo said in surprise, "So you use the weight and another mysterious mechanism. In that case, then you can stay." With Mr. Popo's permission, Ayaka stayed at the lookout. The lookout life was very dull and tedious, but Ayaka could endure loneliness and didn't become irritated by it. At this time, Ayaka was practicing on the lookout, constantly waving her fists and palms into the air. In a quiet time like a pretty flower shining in the water, she moved like a weak willow with a beautiful physique showing no doubt. Ayaka's dress was lovely at this time. She wore a snow-white long-sleeved sweater with an amber casual shirt over it. Her bottom body was covered with a pair of tight black pants and a denim skirt. A beige ribbon was wrapped around her neck, just like a budding flower stamen, which would have attracted people's attention like a massive magnet if there were people around. Mr. Popo observed Ayaka's movements, giving her advice from time to time, helping Ayaka constantly change her movements' shortcomings. "Ayaka, when you move, keep your mind like water. Be as fast as lightning, and don't overthink," Mr. Popo said to Ayaka. Ayaka nodded knowingly and then kept adjusting her movements to try to keep her mind as still as possible. Ayaka was also an excellent martial artist but lacking a basic teacher. With Mr. Popo's guidance, Ayaka quickly made up for her shortcomings. Time flew by, and Ayaka's foundation increased under Mr. Popo's guidance. She was able to fight with a mind like water and not be disturbed by external objects. The refinement of the heart had become a small success. After months of training at the lookout, Ayaka made up for the lack of foundation and laid a good foundation for future development. On this day, Mr. Popo called Ayaka and took her to a room located below the lookout. Walking down the stairs that wind downward, Ayaka was filled with confusion as to where Mr. Popo intended to take her. Could it be the hyperbolic time chamber? It was not right to think about it. Although the air was thin, the temperature change was significant. The gravity was many times that of Earth inside the hyperbolic time chamber. A person could only go in for 2 days in a lifetime, and there seemed to be no point in going into a hyperbolic time chamber for her. The hyperbolic time chamber mainly depended on the harsh environment to refine the practitioner's physique. The vast but empty, lonely environment would test the practitioner's psychological endurance. It was not a big deal, to say the least. It was just a hang-up 1 year inside equal to 1 day outside. Speaking of the harsh weather in the hyperbolic time chamber, Ayaka could only snort a laugh. The air was thin with a temperature difference of -40 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius and gravity equal to 10 times that of the Earth. How could the combination of these 3 points not be described as a harsh environment? How could Ayaka, who had experienced the inhumane conditions of Steel Planet, be affected by this? As for the psychological torture of the empty, Ayaka was used to living alone, and the time spent with others was less. It must be said that Dragon Ball had utterly lost the balance of the power system at a later stage. With a few hundred tons of heavy exercise, a terrifyingly strong person could break through and burst the earth with a single punch. Remember little Goku as a child who could push a small mountain? How much more could he grow? The hyperbolic time chamber was initially set up to gain time strength before facing the enemy and didn't have much meaning in training. The hyperbolic time chamber does not have any meaning for training. Mr. Popo should be aware of this. Then, where is he taking me to? While Ayaka was thinking, Mr. Popo had led her to the door of a room. After pushing open the door, Ayaka saw the black room inside. There was a diesel generator-like equipment on the corner, next to a piece of operating equipment with either red or green buttons and several handles. In the center of the room, a vast magic array was faintly visible. This is... Ayaka seemed to have seen such a room somewhere and could not help but close her eyes in search of it. By the way, this is not the original content. In the original story, Mr. Popo once turned on the time machine, sending Son Goku back more than 300 years ago to see Master Mateto, the teacher of Master Roshi. Could it be that Mr. Popo intended to send me back 300 years ago? Although it was not part of the original story content, it was also a Dragon Ball story. Just like the anime version, which even had a great conflict with the manga. In comparison, the original anime story was just a supplement to the original manga. In Ayaka's opinion, Dragon Ball's original anime story was still doing very well, making up for Son Goku's training process over several years. Miss Ayaka, your training in the lookout has been completed, so I intend to send you to other places for training. Take the strengths to complement the weaknesses, and collect the strengths of 100 schools. At this time, Mr. Popo had the idea of letting Ayaka become the successor of Kami. Ayaka was not quite sure what Mr. Popo and Kami were planning to do. She was all smiles and said happily, "Thank you so much, Mr. Popo. I really don't know what to say." Mr. Popo let Ayaka stand in the center of the magic array as he walked to the console's front to prepare to turn on the equipment. Wait a minute. An old voice came from outside the room, and Kami approached with his crutches. Kami. What are you doing here? Mr. Popo saw Kami walking over and greeted him. Kami nodded to Mr. Popo and then looked at Ayaka. Ayaka also looked at Kami with wide eyes. Kid, I need you to travel over 300 years ago to defeat a demon King Piccolo. Kami stated his purpose. 300 years ago, Demon King Piccolo endangered the whole world and enveloped the whole world in a dark panic. Although the strongest person among humans later sealed Demon King Piccolo at the cost of sacrificing his life, I want you to go and defeat him. Let me go and defeat Demon King Piccolo. Ayaka was stunned that it was too easy to defeat Demon King Piccolo. Ayaka was worried about how it would affect the current world if she went back 300 years and defeated Demon King Piccolo. Wouldn't it have an impact? Could it be it was like the future Trunks changed the Dragon Ball world's fate without forming a change in his world, otherwise, it would completely change the current world. Kami probably saw Ayaka's concerns, explained, you do not have to worry about how it will affect the current world. Because in my memory of our world 300 years ago when Demon King Piccolo endangered the world, you did not appear. That means you are not a participant in this world of Demon King Piccolo incident. Now, if I send you back to 300 years ago, no matter what you do, you will not be able to affect this world, but will only create another different world. Ayaka heard and understood. Because this world now had no involvement in the world of 300 years ago, so no matter how she changed the world, it would not affect this place. What if, for example, in a certain world, I was involved in it? Would that world be changed then? Ayaka asked. In that case, that world will not be changed either because you are participating in that world's history. The future of that world is formed after your participation. Kami replied. Many people cling to the paradox of going back in time to kill their grandfather so that there would be no birth of their own. They wouldn't be able to realize the event of their grandfather's murder again, thus creating a paradox. This was not a paradox but slightly limited thinking. Imagine a parallel space theory, which was two unrelated worlds. Naturally, there was no way to interfere. The grandfather's death only caused the subsequent changes in the world of grandfather's death. The other scenario involved the same world theory, where the person who travels back in time tried to kill his grandfather. Obviously, he could not succeed because his existence told us that his grandfather was not dead. His intention to kill the grandfather wouldn't go well, and he was already a participant in history. At that point, he also existed in the past, from which he traveled back in time. He became an agent of history rather than a change agent. Perhaps the reason why grandfather and grandmother met was set up by the unexpected event of him trying to kill grandfather. In this theory, many people believe that time travel formed a loop and proceeded infinitely. This was another misunderstanding because the two time periods did not proceed simultaneously from the timeline standpoint. People who believed in an infinite loop tended to think that the world developed until crossing continued to develop. In contrast, those who crossed back to the past were marching again according to the historical trajectory. It was subtle that they thoughtlessly applied the idea that the two worlds proceeded simultaneously. In reality, we did not encounter people from the future made the possibility that time machines had a minimal period of days, hours, or even seconds. Perhaps time machines couldn't be made. Another one was the world line theory, which held the idea that there was only one world, but with a different script. Small change to the plot would end the original script at the point of change, and the world would enter another script to continue development. In the case of a time travel change, the entire world development within the time spanning arc would be erased by filling this gap through a pattern such as instilling everyone's memories after the plot's change developing in real time after the point of crossing. Due to the small magnitude of the plot change, the people's fate of life and death did not change much. However, if a change occurs in a major event, enough to affect the world's course, the world would enter another world line completely, then the fate of people would also change drastically. Suppose one could kill the grandfather, which meant self-denial of the original history from the grandfather's moment of death. That part of history was erased, thus filling the memory to the crossing point and then enter the actual track and continue to develop. Time theory was roughly dominated by these three, of which the parallel world theory was the most widely used and was also elaborated in cosmic physics. If there were two universes of the same mass, under the premise of following the same physics laws, starting with the singularity of the Big Bang, everything in them would continue the same pattern with the only minor changes in the world by some incidental factors. By and large, two parallel universes. The same world theory was the truest, and the world line theory was the most innovative and logical. So, the meaning of what Kami said indicates that Dragon Ball was an applicator of the parallel world theory. In other words, no matter how you change, it will not affect this world. Suddenly, Ayaka thought, So, there were countless Dragon Ball worlds. How could that be? Was it super spacetime chaos? All right. I'll kill Demon King Piccolo. Ayaka had no more worries in her heart and readily agreed to do so. Seeing Ayaka's promise to defeat Demon King Piccolo, Kami breathed a sigh of relief and instructed Mr. Popo to turn on the time machine. Beep. The machine emitted a beeping sound, and the central array cast a dazzling white light. Poof! An intense white light flashed, and the vivid flash stung people to close their eyes. When they opened their eyes, there were only a few strands of faint green smoke left in the room, and Ayaka's figure had disappeared into the array. Kami. Do you want Ayaka to kill Demon King Piccolo? After Ayaka disappeared, Mr. Popo asked Kami worriedly. Demon King Piccolo should have been killed a long time ago. If Demon King Piccolo is killed, then there will be no more Kami Dragon Balls in that world. The whole world might be able to be changed. Kami closed his eyes and said slowly, this is also a test for Ayaka. If she can kill Demon King Piccolo, Ayaka will be qualified to inherit the position of Kami. Do you intend to give the position of Kami to Ayaka after Ayaka returns? Mr. Popo did not object to Kami's intention to let Ayaka inherit the position of Kami. He also knew that Ayaka had the strength to do so, and Kami no longer needed a better reason. Ayaka's strength was powerful, and she had a kind heart, so it couldn't be better for her to inherit the position of Kami. Ayaka didn't know that these were a test for Kami to choose the Kami successor. As long as Ayaka killed Demon King Piccolo, then she would become the new Kami. Time travel was full of unknowns and uncertainties, and if you were not careful, you could get lost in the unknown world. Ayaka only felt a tingle in her body, as if she had been electrocuted. When she came back to her senses, she had already appeared inside a large forest. The trees in the whole forest were tall and upright, with lush branches and leaves. From time to time, birds stopped in the trees and made squeaking and chirping sounds. Ayaka slowly walked out of the forest along the mountain path to a small township with a tiny population. Looking at the pedestrians coming and going in the streets, wearing oversized shirts with ancient colors, Ayaka couldn't help but think, this place does seem to be more than 300 years old, with very simple clothes. She paid no attention to the stunning glances that the men and women were casting at her. Ayaka unknowingly came before a waterfall and saw a set of women's clothes on the ground. Behind the rocks of the waterfall faintly, she saw a graceful and exquisite body. Is someone bathing there? Ayaka was not interested in going over to peep. If it were the old Ayaka, she would not have let this opportunity go. However, now Ayaka was a woman herself, and both her figure and appearance were very outstanding. After years of looking at her beautiful and seductive body, she had strong immunity to other women. Furthermore, the two worlds were different, and the supreme pursuit was different. As she was about to leave, Ayaka saw a man hiding there, peeping from afar behind a large tree. Surprisingly, peeping at women bathing. Ayaka was amazed and walked in the direction of the man without a word. It's pretty, isn't it? Ayaka quietly and silently came to the man's side and asked in a soft voice. The man nodded and wiped away the nosebleed coming out of his nose. It's so beautiful, my Fan is so cute. Fan. Ayaka heard the woman's name was somewhat familiar. She then remembered that it was the girl that Master Roshi had a crush on when he was young. Could this man be the Master Roshi of his youth? At this point, Master Roshi came back to his senses and found that a lovely girl had appeared next to him at some point. When he thought that his peeping was revealed, Master Roshi was about to shout, "Ah!" when Ayaka quickly covered his mouth and dragged Master Roshi to a distance. "Miss, you are cute. May I know your name?" After leaving that place where things were wrong, Master Roshi accosted Ayaka. "Indeed, you're a pervert. No wonder you're so horny, so you were like this since you were young." Ayaka rudely glared at Master Roshi and did not reply. Master Roshi could only shut his mouth and was dragged by Ayaka towards the market. "Where is Mateto Training Academy?" Walking through the market, Ayaka turned her head and asked Master Roshi. "Ah! You are looking for Master Mateto Training Academy. I am Master Mateto's disciple. Let me take you there," Master Roshi said. Ayaka secretly smiled, already knew that he was a disciple of Master Mateto, otherwise, why would she ask him? In this era, the Earth's technology had not yet developed. A small town was tiny. It didn't take long for Master Roshi to lead Ayaka to the door of Mateto Training Academy. Mateto Training Academy was not very big, and there were only about 30 students inside. Mateto was an outstanding martial artist with unique insights into martial arts. Ayaka came to see Mateto because she wanted to meet this person who had a high martial arts attainment level. Walking into the training academy and passing through several dojos, Ayaka came to the inner room of the academy, where Mateto lived. Ayaka saw an old man in a white martial arts uniform sitting on the wooden floor, holding hot tea in his hand from a distance. "Greetings, Mr. Mateto." Ayaka walked up and said very politely, "My name is Ayaka, a martial artist from far away. I have heard of Mr. Mateto's great name and have come to pay a visit to the master and seek his guidance." Mateto put down the cup of tea in his hand and looked sharply at Ayaka as if he wanted to see her through. "Girl, I sense a touch of nature in your gait. It seemed that your understanding of the martial arts is not below mine." Ayaka smiled modestly and did not deny it. "It's also a great pleasure to spar with a real martial artist." With that, Mateto stood up and invited Ayaka to come to the middle of the dojo. Ayaka knew that Mateto was valuing her and wanted to have a sparring session with her. Ayaka adjusted the weight on her body and collected her internal ki. She suppressed her power level to 200, roughly as strong as Mateto, and then posed for a fight. Mateto gazed at the young girl in front of him. It was hard to imagine that such a young girl already possessed a strength no less than him. Ayaka also looked grave. Mateto's stance let her see a different kind of martial artist. The atmosphere of majestic aura came to the surface. Whoosh! Mateto's figure disappeared from in front of Ayaka, whose eyes kept turning as her gaze followed Mateto's figure closely. Ho! A fist steeply appeared in Ayaka's waist. Ayaka fell sideways, avoiding the fist in her waist, and the intense wind energy struck the ground, making a sudden sound. Ayaka's body flashed, avoiding a series of attacks from Mateto. The attacks came in wave after wave, like wolves and tigers, constantly growling and hissing. Ayaka retreated, withdrew dozens of meters, then squared her stance. With a dive, she rushed toward Mateto. Mateto's gaze flickered as he stared closely at Ayaka's movements. Bang! Ayaka attacked with a punch, but unfortunately, Mateto took it with his elbows. Looking at Ayaka's direct attack and never dragged, Mateto couldn't help but nod his head before quickly launching an attack towards Ayaka. Swoosh! Mateto appeared behind Ayaka at an incredible angle and swung his fist down at Ayaka. Ayaka had already noticed Mateto's action. When a punch was about to attack her back, she smiled bashfully and fell towards the ground to avoid Mateto's attack. The two of them kept attacking each other, and their attacks became faster and faster. Slowly, only the crackling sound from the fight could be heard. In the light of day, the two have exchanged hands no less than 100 times. Bang! Mateto landed a heavy punch but was gently slashed away by Ayaka with her hand, making that punch fall short. After a long battle, neither of them had a trace of disorder in their ki, and it seemed that neither of them had brought out their actual skills to fight. Ayaka leaped back and came to a certain distance away from Matedo. She then sent out a ki wave with one hand. The azure ki wave flashed with a dazzling light and flew towards Matedo. When Matedo saw that Ayaka had made a ki wave, he did not panic and opened his hands to catch the wave. Boom! The damage from the explosion caused the wooden floor to break into shreds, raising the wind and filling the dojo. Good opportunity. Ayaka seized the moment of the explosion. Her body rushed forward and launched a general attack on Matedo. Caught off guard, Matedo was sent flying nearly 10 meters away by Ayaka's palm strike. Master Rashi, who had long been stunned by the battle between Ayaka and Matedo, ran over and helped Matedo up after seeing his master being knocked away. "It seems that I lost," Matedo said with a calm expression, not putting up a good fight. "It's true that heroes come out of youngsters. Little girl, your strength is definitely among the world's strongest." "No, I'm the one who lost." Ayaka shook her head, raised her arm, and at the armpit's location near her chest, a cut was made at some point. Ayaka knew that this was Matedo showing mercy. If it were not for the fact that she was a girl, Matedo would have temporarily retracted the force of his hand on her chest. The blow just now would have seriously injured her, and it would have been her who fell to the ground. Ayaka did not feel terrible about the defeat, even after the guidance of Mr. Popo and Kami. In the case of the same power level, she still lost to Matedo by one move. It showed that the high level of Matedo's martial arts was not inferior to Kami and Mr. Popo. No wonder he was named Master by the people of the world. Master Rashi and Master Shin also inherited the title from him. Even though Ayaka's actual power level at the moment reached 140,000, it was worth thinking about how to make good use of them in a subtle way. With every effort made, Ayaka had decided to build a solid foundation before coming to Earth. During her time with Master Rashi, she couldn't even look at Master Rashi's training because the level was too low. When she was with Mr. Popo and Kami, she gained a boost, and here with Matedo, it seemed that there was also room for improvement. This was worth the trip. She thought that Kami and Mr. Popo were also aware of Matedo's martial arts attainment. As long as she learned the martial arts attainment of Matedo, Ayaka believed that there should be no more subtle realm in the world. At that time, her foundation would be completed, and then she could enhance her power level without fear. Miss Ayaka is an outstanding martial artist. Matedo laughed brightly and said to Ayaka with a fist, "You always welcome to come and spar with me, Mississippi." Ayaka returned the greeting to Matedo and said she would be staying nearby. Ayaka knew that when Demon King Piccolo appeared, Matedo would bring his disciples to fight. By staying near Matedo Training Academy, she wouldn't only learn from Matedo's experience but also grasp Demon King Piccolo's whereabouts. Ayaka settled down in the town and slowly integrated. The villagers also took a great liking to Ayaka, a young girl who dressed up innovatively. Slowly, Ayaka had lived in the town for a year, during which Ayaka often went to the Matedo Training Academy and sparred with him in martial arts. This let many villagers knew that this quiet and lovely girl possessed a powerful strength that could destroy the world. This year, Ayaka had been wearing weight-bearing clothes, controlling her strength to over 200. Ayaka knew that with the lookout and this year's training, even though they had temporarily abandoned the pursuit of power level, it should be known that the partial improvement would also be magnified to the overall improvement. As a result, Ayaka's strength had broken through to 150,000 power levels. One day, Ayaka came to Matedo Training Academy but found that everyone inside was silent while Matedo was thinking about something with a grave face. Seeing Ayaka come in, Matedo said, "Ayaka, a large city nearby, was destroyed by Demon King not long ago, and everyone inside was killed. According to the projection, the next target may be here." When Ayaka heard this, she came to her senses and said with a twinkle in her eyes, "Is it Demon King Piccolo?" "Yes, Demon King Piccolo had already destroyed dozens of big cities in a row. Unexpectedly, he came to us this time. Mutato said gruffly, the villagers in the nearby villages are worried about being attacked by the Demon King Piccolo and are leaving one after another. Demon King Piccolo's power had spread worldwide in the previous wars, and now the whole world was falling into a panic because of Demon King Piccolo. Master, let's unite some people to crush Demon King Piccolo. The young Master Rashi proposed to Mutato. Hearing this, the disciples at the side all murmured in agreement, yes, Master, why don't we go crusade against Demon King Piccolo? Mutato stood up and reached out to squash the discussion of the disciples. Turning his gaze to Ayaka, he asked, Ayaka, what do you think? Ayaka agreed with the disciples and said, I think to stop Demon King Piccolo, we need to join forces to attack. However, for this battle, the two of us will be fine, no need to bring others. Mutato nodded, and then Master Rashi said reluctantly, Master, take us with you. We have to fight Demon King Piccolo too. Sweeping a glance at Mutato, a powerful aura of Ayaka swept over the sky. Instantly, Mutato and the others seemed to be placed in the ocean, floating as a cold and bone-chilling sensation arose. If you can't even catch a bit of my ki, how can you deal with Demon King Piccolo? Stay here and practice well. If we fail, at least we have you guys to pick up. Under the pressure of Ayaka, the disciples could only lower their heads and stop talking about going to deal with Demon King Piccolo. Mutato looked at Ayaka with a smile and said, in that case, then the two of us, Ayaka and I, will go to deal with Demon King Piccolo. Upon hearing the words of the Master, Master Rashi and other disciples echoed with tears in their hearts, hoping that the Master would be able to destroy Demon King Piccolo. Walking along the long and winding path, Ayaka and Mutato put on their backpacks, said goodbye to the disciples behind them, and set out on the road to crush Demon King Piccolo. Behind them, the disciples waved hands with tears to wish Ayaka and Mutato good luck. Master Rashi looked at the distant backs of Mutato and Ayaka as he prayed in his heart, Master, you and Ayaka must succeed in destroying Demon King Piccolo. The sadness of such an expedition made Ayaka helpless. A mere Demon King Piccolo, making it look as if they were bound to sacrifice. 3 or 4 days after Ayaka and Mutato left, they came to the city that Demon King Piccolo destroyed. At this time, there were broken walls everywhere, abandoned farmland, and collapsed houses, forming a depressing scene of doom. The sky was also dyed blood by the dark power of Demon King Piccolo. Looking at the decaying, depressing scene revealed by Demon King Piccolo, Mutato's eyes widened with an iron face. The anger in his heart had reached a point where he couldn't vent it. Perhaps because Ayaka had seen the apocalyptic scene of Planet Kano, she just had a heartfelt disgust for what was in front of her. Her brow furrowed slightly, let's go straight to Demon King Piccolo. Mutato nodded, agreeing with Ayaka's proposal. He wanted to solve that Demon King who threatened the whole world as soon as possible. In front of the door of Demon King Piccolo's palace, Ayaka and Mutato looked at the palace in front of them, which was as gloomy and dark as a demon's lair. They looked at each other before stepping into the door of the palace. Hey, there are still humans rushing to the palace of the Demon King. They are looking for death. A sharp and unpleasant voice came from the roof, and then Ayaka saw a green-skinned lizard man with a pair of demon wings. This is the subordinate of Demon King Piccolo, how disgusting. Ayaka looked at the lizard man with disgust. Mutato's body stirred up powerful ki when the lizard man appeared, ready to strike and kill it. Upon sensing the contempt of the two humans in front of him, the lizard man rose in anger, humans, I will let you know what happens when you offend Lord Piccolo. The lizard man stirred the wings on its back and darted towards Ayaka. Gah! The lizardman's attack fell short as it swooped over. By the time Ayaka and Mutato both disappeared with a swoosh. Only a bang sound was heard before Ayaka's ki wave turned the lizard man into ashes. Hurry up and find Demon King Piccolo, Mutato said. Ayaka nodded and continued to walk deeper into the palace. Some Demon King Piccolo's subordinates popped up from time to time, but they were all killed by the two. Soon, Ayaka arrived in front of Demon King Piccolo. The young Demon King Piccolo was sitting on his throne wearing clothing with the word demon printed on it, looking at the two humans in front of him with a strange face. Just a short while ago, a group of humans came to die, but I never thought that someone else would come so soon. Demon King Piccolo arrogantly said, since you are here, this king will make you regret coming here. This king will make your life worse than death. Looking at the arrogant and maniacal laughing Demon King Piccolo, Ayaka's face flashed with cold killing intent. With the arrogance just now, she would make him disappear entirely from this world. Swoosh! Mutato made his move. His body instantly disappeared in place. He quickly came to Demon King Piccolo with a fist wrapped in a powerful aura smashed down. Boom! The powerful attack stirred up a massive whirlwind of energy like a shocking wave generally rippled out, lifting the dust on the ground. Demon King Piccolo felt the mighty power of this strike in front of him and hurriedly dodged it. Discovering that he had underestimated these two humans, Demon King Piccolo could not help but become angry. His icy cold eyes swept towards the two of them, and a terrifying killing intent seemed to condense into a ball. Mutato looked at Demon King Piccolo with a stony face, carefully gathering the ki in his body, ready to attack Demon King Piccolo at any time. Ho! Mutato lightly shouted. The ki on the whole body surged several times. The overwhelming ki seemed like a fierce tiger that just came out of the cage, continually hissing and roaring. Demon King Piccolo had a colder face in this steeply increased huge ki. Unexpectedly, this human's ki was only a few points worse than his. Ayaka, who stood next to him, also showed a surprised look. She didn't expect Mutato to have such strength and thought that his focus on martial arts details was not too strong at the power level. It seemed that he had already made the bottom of his trump card out. Thunder shock surprise. Mutato let out an explosive shout. His body steeply flashed and incredibly came behind Demon King Piccolo. In the stunned gaze of Demon King Piccolo, a palm with a golden glow struck down. The golden palm brought up an intense flash of electricity, cutting a terrifying arc of electricity in the air. Thunder shock surprise swept down with an irrepressible momentum, thundering down, knocking Demon King Piccolo tens of meters away and hitting the stone pillars of the palace heavily. Ayaka saw Mutato make thunder shock surprise and couldn't help but pause to watch. The blow just now, it was evident that Mutato had the upper hand. Ayahawk! Demon King Piccolo let out an angry roar and wiped away the purple blood from the corner of his mouth. Damn it! I can't believe you hurt me. Demon King Piccolo swore that he would completely tear the human in front of him to pieces. With his evil and icy gaze sweeping mercilessly at Ayaka and Mutato, Demon King Piccolo licked his lips at the corners of his mouth and wore a cold smile on his face. He tugged his fist up tightly with one hand and said wickedly, surprisingly, you made me get hurt, so prepare to meet the baptism of death. Demon King Piccolo's ki kept rising. The whole palace began to shake continuously, and a whirlwind swept out in all directions with him as the center. The deadly, desolate aura came out as if in an endless purgatory, making the surrounding area filled with the smell of blood. The smell like a Shura hell made Ayaka's brows furrowed. Demon King Piccolo's strength seems to be much stronger than when Son Goku dealt with him. Is it because he is at his peak now? Facing the powerful ki that came upon him, Mutato's face could not help but become grave. His gaze focused on Demon King Piccolo. Now, I'll let you see the strength of this Demon King Piccolo. After saying that, Demon King Piccolo's figure suddenly flashed. He reappeared and arrived at Mutato's side, as a sharp claw with a powerful corrosive attacked Mutato. Mutato's face remained unchanged. He shifted his defensive posture and set his feet, then raised his elbow to ward off the attack of Demon King Piccolo. Hiss! Matato's face changed slightly as the ki with a hugely corrosive effect corroded his elbow area's martial arts clothing. Matato suddenly turned around and pulled a distance of several meters away from Demon King Piccolo. However, when Matato stabilized his body, Demon King Piccolo came in front of him at some point and attacked Matato's heart. Boom! A slim white hand clutched the attacking demon claw. At the crisis moment, Ayaka decisively stepped in and caught Demon King Piccolo's attack. The corrosive ki kept devouring the small snow-white hand, emitting a sizzling sound of corrosion. Matato saw Ayaka's small hand being swallowed by the corrosive ki and couldn't help but show a worried expression. However, Ayaka's face was as usual. Her right hand tightly grasped the demon's claw, then her small hand squeezed hard, and a terrifying explosive power poured out from Ayaka's fingers. Ha! Ayaka forcefully ripped off one of Demon King Piccolo's arms. Eh! With his entire arm ripped off by Ayaka, Demon King Piccolo let out a roar of pain. How did this happen? Demon King Piccolo said in disbelief as he looked at his disconnected arm. He looked evasive, and sweat started to form on his forehead. Matato was also shocked by Ayaka's fantastic move. He knew the strength of Demon King Piccolo. How could he have his arm torn off by Ayaka so easily? Piccolo, you know, I came to this era is to destroy you. At this time, Ayaka didn't need to conceal and said with light and face. What? Demon King Piccolo was stunned by Ayaka's words. She came to this era. Could it be that the young girl in front of him wasn't from this time and space? That's right. I am not from this era. I come from 300 years later, commissioned by Kami to come and destroy you. Kami. Demon King Piccolo understood that the young girl in front of him was unexpectedly sent over from 300 years later from his other self. Do you think you can kill me? Demon King Piccolo laughed wildly. In this world, no one could defeat him. A vast aura from Demon King Piccolo exploded violently. It was even more terrifying oppression than just now, causing the palace to begin to shake, and a tiny crack appeared on the wall. At this time, even Matato had a cold sweat under this maddening ki. This strength is no weaker than the second Demon King Piccolo at the beginning of the Dragon Ball Z. However, such ki was so weak to Ayaka. She didn't put that ki of Demon King Piccolo in her eyes. Ayaka narrowed her eyes as if looking at the clown Demon King Piccolo. Feeling Ayaka's mocking eyes, Demon King Piccolo spat blood in anger. Ayaka shook her head. You know what, there are countless strong people in the entire universe, they can crush you like an ant, so don't sit back and watch the sky. As it happens, I am one of them. Activating the Unshifted, abruptly, Ayaka's eyes emitted a faint ghostly light. These eyes of mine can see through anyone's power level. Earth is a planet with a shallow power level. Master Matato has around 200 power levels, which is considered the most powerful among humans. Ayaka turned her eyes with blue light to Demon King Piccolo, and you, Demon King Piccolo, have 340 power levels in your peak state now. Upon looking at Matato's puzzled eyes, Ayaka continued, my power level is much higher than you think. However, to train on Earth, I specially put on weight-bearing clothes, a total of more than 100 tons of weight. Moreover, I have deliberately restrained the use of ki during normal times. My real power level is 156,000. Ayaka said as she reduced the weight on her body to 0. As the weight disappeared, the oppression of space also vanished along with it. Suddenly, a shockingly humongous beatable ki rose to the sky. The ground seemed to begin to shake up, and the entire palace collapsed under the powerful momentum. The dust was paved with strong air currents. The ground centered on Ayaka sank several meters, covered with deep and winding ravines. The untouched ground suddenly became potholes while the powerful cyclone swept over the sky, making it impossible to see straight. The world all seemed to become restless because of Ayaka's ki. This was the first time Ayaka unrestrained released her ki. Immediately, a feeling of the sky was high enough for birds to fly was born. Looking at Ayaka, whose ki had undergone a sudden and shocking change, Demon King Piccolo and Matedo were dumbfounded. They were unable to imagine that there could still be such a powerful person in the world. How is this possible? Demon King Piccolo reveals a crying expression, slightly bitterly said. With such a monster-like person in this world, how could his ambition to rule the world still be realized? Demon King Piccolo, today it is impossible for you to escape. So, be a good boy and die. Ayaka said with a flat face as if she had pronounced his death sentence. Demon King Piccolo hissed crazily, "No, I am the fearsome Demon King, everything in the world is at my disposal. I will make the whole world covered with darkness." Noisy. Ayaka's eyes flashed a harsh cold light, and her body suddenly burst out a wave of golden energy. Powerful golden energy like a huge dragon, looking up to the sky and roaring, and the powerful ki that makes the whole world fearful went towards Demon King Piccolo. Boom! The golden energy wave that surged and tumbled continuously expanded and compressed. Demon King Piccolo was instantly turned into ashes under the compelling energy. At the same time, Kami in the lookout and the 7 Dragon Balls in various parts of the world turned into dust in the world. Looking at Demon King Piccolo, who brought panic to the world and was unbeatably turned into ashes in a wave of energy from Ayaka, Matedo did not come back from the shock for a long time. Until now, Matedo could not believe that the young girl in front of him had such a terrifying strength to destroy the world. However, the surrounding earth, which had become pitted and disfigured, told him that this was real. Recollecting her ki and recovering her weight, Ayaka turned back into that petite and elegant little girl. Seeing Matedo's shocked look, Ayaka smiled lightly. What Kami asked herself to do has been completed. She had also learned the martial arts tips of Matedo. The next step was to sit back and wait for the time for Mr. Popo to pick her back up. "I never thought you came from the future." Matedo's face was full of shock. He was stunned by Ayaka's identity. After a brief exchange with a distraught Matedo, Ayaka returned to the town with Matedo. Looking at the charming young girl beside him, Matedo still couldn't believe that there was such a powerful strength hidden under her slender body. Back in the town, the villagers cheered with excitement after learning that Demon King Piccolo had been destroyed. During the night, the town held a grand celebration ceremony. Ayaka and Matedo were surrounded by enthusiastic villagers, constantly toasting and laughing at them. The party lasted until the early hours of the morning before slowly dispersing. Ayaka also experienced the joy of the villagers bursting out after the Great Panic. This time, Demon King Piccolo was destroyed by her intervention, causing the world's trajectory to be slightly different. Matedo did not die. Only the next day, Ayaka got away from the enthusiastic villagers. Phew! Ayaka let out a long breath. She was not used to this feeling of being surrounded by everyone. Matedo came around and said with a smile, "Ayaka, the villagers are very grateful that you killed Demon King Piccolo." Ayaka rolled her eyes and said helplessly, "I killed Demon King Piccolo, which Kami commissioned. Even without my hand, Demon King Piccolo would have been sealed by you in history." Matedo shook his head and said, "I know very well the strength of Demon King Piccolo. According to you in history, if you had not made a move, Demon King Piccolo would have been sealed by me, but I think I would have paid a small price. So, I still have to thank you." Ayaka nodded with a light smile and accepted Matedo's thanks. In history, Matedo brought his disciples to crusade against Demon King Piccolo, and he failed. However, with a strong vitality, Matedo did not die of serious injuries. He departed alone, leaving a message to his disciples that he would return. Later, Matedo returned and used the evil containment wave to seal Demon King Piccolo into the rice cooker jar. However, he also paid the price of his life. After that, Master Roshi and Master Shin sunk the sealed rice cooker jar with Demon King Piccolo inside into the sea. Ayaka thought about it. She had now killed Demon King Piccolo, it meant that Kami and Dragon Balls would disappear from this world. Son Goku and Bulma wouldn't meet in the future, and all history would have changed. Suddenly, Ayaka's heart flashed with a bad feeling. I have killed Demon King Piccolo. So, of course, Son Goku and Bulma will not meet in the future. However, the Saiyans at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z will still come to Earth. Even if Vegeta and Frieza would not come to Earth and planet Namek, as a result, the androids will not appear. However, Majin Buu's egg is still on the Earth. If Majin Buu appears, Ayaka's mood became terrible all of a sudden. She was vaguely regretting that she had rashly killed Demon King Piccolo. Dragon Ball. The nexus of the Dragon Ball world was Dragon Ball. Therefore, Demon King Piccolo and Kami, who were closely related to the Dragon Ball, were also critical links to the main story. Kami does not know what the future of the Earth will face. He thought that the world would be peaceful if I killed Demon King Piccolo, so he sent me over to kill Piccolo. However, the result of his action caused the Dragon Ball to disappear, and there is no one to deal with Majin Buu. Ayaka's face became ugly. As a result of a moment of negligence, the world might be plunged into eternal darkness in the future. Wait a minute. There seems to be no Majin Buu in that future world of Trunks, will this world also? Damn. I can't have this kind of gambling idea. The world of Trunks might be the one where Majin Buu hasn't come out yet. If Majin Buu appeared in this world without the Dragon Ball traction, then it's all over. Ayaka racked her brain, trying to find a way to compensate. Mutato saw Ayaka frowning and meditating with a look of distress. He thought she was in some trouble and asked with concern, Ayaka, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with your body? Ayaka shook her hand without saying anything. Now, it was a little late to say anything. Perhaps Demon King Piccolo was the first to be destroyed for the people of this era, and nobody knew what would happen 300 years later. Finally, Ayaka told his concerns to Mutato, who, after listening, said with a grave face. Ayaka, do you mean to say that killing Demon King Piccolo today might have an impact on the future, making it impossible to destroy future enemies? Ayaka nodded and said, I come from the future due to the existence of Demon King Piccolo. 300 years from now, a group of powerful Earth warriors will gather. They will fight against monsters that are eviler than Demon King Piccolo to protect the Earth. However, now that I have destroyed Demon King Piccolo, I am worried that those warriors will not appear anymore. Ha! Mutato laughed cheerfully and said under Ayaka's surprised eyes, although Demon King Piccolo no longer exists, we still exist. Just let us train the future warriors, what about that? For the sake of the future, I, Mutato, will also strive to train outstanding disciples, allowing them to inherit our beliefs to raise powerful and outstanding warriors for the Earth. Mutato's words were like a thunderbolt that shook through Ayaka's heart and soul. Yes. No matter what the future enemy, even without the Dragon Ball's bond, one can still leave enough faith for the future. Let's reunite the Dragon Ball warriors. All of a sudden, Ayaka became open-minded and cheerful before the depression and confusion swept away. Even when there was no more Dragon Ball resurrection function, it should generally still reach the ultimate goal of defeating Majin Buu if the clever layout. Then it's up to us to start a new world. Ayaka gazed solemnly said to Mutato. Mutato smiled and nodded. To deal with the possible emergence of more evil existence than Demon King Piccolo, now it was necessary to start planning for the future. Mutato gathered his disciples, set up arrangements, and began to accept disciples. He then broke the martial artist stereotypes and taught them all his skills to train the best disciples. The young Master Roshi's and Master Shin's martial arts skills gradually improved under the guidance of Mutato. As a result, there was no later rebellion because of the death of Mutato. Time passed little by little. Ayaka knew the day she left this world was approaching. She also planned to leave something behind to prepare this world for the future against cosmonauts and evil creatures. After all, it was due to her momentary negligence that caused the uncertainty of the future. Seeing Ayaka take out a rice cooker, Mateto asked in confusion, "What are you doing with the rice cooker?" "I feel that soon I will have to leave this world and return to the original world. I want to leave something for this world, at least in the future when there is something different, it can play a small role," Ayaka said with a smile. Putting the rice cooker in the middle of the courtyard, Ayaka stretched out her arm and took a deep breath. A half-moon-shaped key blade coalesced in her hand. Poof! A wound appeared above a white arm, and blood dripped down the arm and fell into a long-prepared wide-mouth bottle. "Ayaka, what are you doing?" Mateto asked with shock and confusion. Ayaka ignored Mateto's question. She endured the pain coming from the wound and filled the wide-mouth bottle with her blood. In the end, she quickly put the wide-mouth bottle into the rice cooker and then used her body's ki. All of a sudden, a surging and vast ki came out from Ayaka's body. Ayaka carefully condensed a golden ball of ki and put the golden ball of ki into the wide-mouth bottle, then sealed it against the rice cooker. Evil Containment Wave. Ayaka condensed her ki with one hand and cast the evil containment wave into the rice cooker. A long blue dragon winding towards the rice cooker, and the evil containment wave emitted a bright light, making people close their eyes. Bang! The evil containment wave hit the rice cooker with Ayaka's blood in the wide-mouth bottle sealed in one go. Ayaka picked up the sealed rice cooker with her blood from the ground and wiped the sweat from her forehead. The wound on her arm had stopped bleeding due to the powerful healing ability, and it won't take long to repair. Mateto was concerned and stepped forward, reaching out to take the rice cooker handed up by Ayaka. Ayaka said, "Do not worry. I have a powerful recovery ability, the wound on the arm will soon be restored." As soon as Ayaka finished speaking, a golden glow emitted from the wound on her arm. Then, in front of Mateto's astonished gaze, some small balls of flesh grew out of the wound. The flesh balls kept moving and slowly grew longer, bringing a slight itching sensation, and gradually a flawless arm emerged. Phew! Ayaka shook the healed arm, and the white jade-like skin flowed with a faint glow. The seemingly bulletproof skin hid a fantastic strength. Mateto saw with his own eyes Ayaka's recovery ability. His mouth opened wide in surprise, he had never seen someone who could heal his injuries in such a short period. Mateto shook his head with an incomprehensible look, "I see, you're the real monster." Ayaka smiled lightly. She was delighted with her recovery ability. Although this would consume a huge amount of her energy for a short period, it was better to drag a stump to fight someone else than to drop a little in overall strength to fight with an adequate body at full force. Her previous expectation of that night was correct. Her recovery ability would indeed gradually become stronger with the increase in strength. With the current recovery ability, it was already almost no worse than that of the Namekians. Ayaka accepted all of Mateto's words, she still had an apparent understanding of herself. "I'm really a monster now, a real undead monster. However, I like myself being such a monster." Ayaka handed the rice cooker in her hand to Mateto and said with a serious face, "I have an immortal body. It means that no matter how injured I am, I can regenerate infinitely as long as one cell exists before the end of my natural life. The bottle sealed in this rice cooker contains a sample of my blood, which in theory can also be said to be me. Because of my existence as the original, I cannot transform into another me. However, when I leave this world, this bottle of blood sample should become the new Ayaka, and become my doppelganger. I have injected enough life force into the blood sample. I hope you will keep this rice cooker. When an irresistible evil existence appears in the future, open this seal and release my doppelganger." Mateto solemnly took the rice cooker with Ayaka's doppelganger sealed in it and said with a serious face, "Don't worry, Ayaka, I will preserve her well." At this point, Ayaka remembered that Kami no longer existed in this world. Therefore, new Kami had to be re-elected, and among humans, Mateto was an excellent candidate. "Master Mateto, have you ever been to Korin Tower?" Ayaka asked. Korin Tower. Mutato shook his head. Although he did not know why Ayaka asked about Korin Tower, he still answered, I know the sacred land of Kylan. It is said to be a sacred place of martial arts. Unfortunately, I have not been to Korin Tower. Ayaka hoped that Mutato would go to Korin Tower and become the new kami, so she said, above the Korin Tower in the sacred land of Korin lives Cat Hermit. He is an existence whose martial arts are not inferior to that of kami. Above the Korin Tower also exists Kami. Kami? Is that the god that sent you to this era? Mutato asked in surprise. Yes, Kami, the god of earth. He is responsible for watching over the order on earth. Kami and Demon King Piccolo were originally one, but Kami was unable to come down to the world to remove the Demon King Piccolo for some reason. So he asked me to kill the Demon King Piccolo. Ayaka said the secret about Kami. Upon thinking that Kami had disappeared in this world, her face could not help but feel a little lost. Kami and Demon King Piccolo are the same. Demon King Piccolo's death also means that Earth's Kami has disappeared, so I suggest Master Mutato go to Korin Tower. Maybe you can inherit the seed of Kami. Mutato developed a heartfelt admiration for Kami, who guarded the earth and willingly disappeared with Demon King Piccolo, but he was not interested in the throne of Kami. Mutato shook his head and rejected Ayaka's suggestion, I have no idea of becoming a god. Ayaka knew that Mutato was a martial artist who was single-mindedly devoted to martial arts. There was only a different pursuit of martial arts. Master Mutato, after becoming a kami, there is a chance to meet North Kai, who is in charge of the entire North area. North Kai is an outstanding martial arts master. As long as you can receive instruction from North Kai, there will be a huge breakthrough in the martial arts. Seeing that Mutato seemed to be somewhat moved, Ayaka continued to persuade, after becoming a kami, Master Mutato will not be immortal. You will then have a lifespan far beyond that of ordinary people so that you can better guard the earth. For the sake of peace on earth, you too must become a kami. She continued to compel. After Ayaka's continuous suggestions, Mutato's attitude finally loosened and hesitantly said, in that case, I'll go to Korin Tower for a while. Seeing that Mutato finally agreed to go to Korin Tower, Ayaka's face loosened up. As long as Mutato was willing to go to Korin Tower, becoming the new kami was confirmed. After a few more days, Mutato took the rice cooker and set off for Korin Tower, leaving the training academy in the hands of two disciples, Master Rashi and Master Shen. Looking at everything that had been arranged, Ayaka could leave this world with peace of mind. With Mutato becoming a new kami, Mutato Training Academy trained martial artists, plus her sealed doppelganger. Even if a powerful enemy appears in the future, they should be able to deal with it. The reason why Ayaka sealed the blood sample in the rice cooker with the evil containment wave was mainly because she did not want to let her genes out. If Dr. Gero also exists here, it was possible that the Dragon Ball warriors would meet her cloned robots before the appearance of Majin Buu. Ayaka was aware of her perversion. It was safe to say that with her incredible physique that became more powerful at a later stage, the only one who could defeat her at that time was herself. Although the cloned robot might not have the same characteristics as Ayaka, the Saiyan bloodline was undoubtedly there. Even when it was a little light because of the features, or modified Saiyan bloodline, there was still a potential to exceed the vast majority of pure Saiyan. Ayaka didn't forget to ask Mutato to bring the rice cooker to the lookout. As long as the timing was right, Ayaka doppelganger would be born by that time, there would things that need to be instructed to that doppelganger. First, for the preliminary stage, the doppelganger should not wander around, otherwise, the genes would be exposed. She was not the original, naturally, there were no immortality characteristics, only an infinite lifespan, and superb healing ability. Therefore, she must not die midway because she couldn't be like the original, who could be extinguished and reborn. Ayaka also said goodbye to Master Rashi and others before leaving and set out on a journey alone. 300 years ago, the landscape was much better than that of Ayaka's time. Ayaka also took the opportunity to relax and began to swim in the mountains. After another 3 weeks, a huge magic array appeared at Ayaka's feet. The magic array glowed and produced a large cloud of smoke, and when the smoke cleared, Ayaka had left this world. Above Korin Tower, the lookout chamber. Mr. Popo controlled the machine in his hand and carefully brought Ayaka back. Boom! A huge explosion occurred in the secret room, and thick smoke covered the entire room, forcing Mr. Popo to leave the room and come out into the corridor. Ahem! Mr. Popo, why are you making so much smoke? Ayaka frowned as she walked out of the smoke, covering her mouth with one hand and saying with some dissatisfaction. The machine has not been used for a long time, some parts are starting to deteriorate. It seems Popo has to rebuild a new one. Mr. Popo looked at the young girl who came out of the thick fog and said with a calm face. She was traveling through time and space in this old machine. What should she think about it? She was afraid that if it broke down in the middle, she would be forgotten somewhere. At the side, Kami saw Ayaka and asked, Ayaka, how is Demon King Piccolo? Ayaka straightened the clothes on her body and combed her hair a bit, then smiled lightly and said, with me, you can completely rest assured that Demon King Piccolo has been destroyed. Kami turned his gaze to Mr. Popo, who said affirmatively, according to my detection of Ayaka, she did kill Demon King Piccolo. What, detection? Did Mr. Popo put a camera on her? Ayaka was startled and stared at Mr. Popo with an ugly face, an appalling aura emanating from her body. Seeing Ayaka's tendency to storm out, Mr. Popo hurriedly explained, Miss Ayaka, don't be angry. These are what I saw through the time machine's monitor, and not specifically spying on you. With that, Mr. Popo pointed his finger at the monitor that had become a piece of debris. Ayaka's breath eased, good thing it's just the monitor. It didn't let them hear what I said. Otherwise, my secrets will all be exposed. It seems that I have to pay attention to it in the future, and I can't just talk nonsense. Seeing Ayaka's key disappeared, Mr. Popo breathed a sigh of relief. He was really shocked by Ayaka's terrible key. After getting Mr. Popo's affirmation, a complicated expression appeared on Kami's face as he knew that Ayaka had indeed destroyed Demon King Piccolo. Kami looked at Ayaka and said in a serious tone, Ayaka, since you killed Demon King Piccolo, then you passed the test. Test? Ayaka looked at Kami in confusion. Could it be that Kami asked her to kill Demon King Piccolo as a test, and what exactly was she being tested for? Mr. Popo saw that Kami was ready to tell the story, so he opened his mouth and said, this is a test for Kami to select a successor after Kami and Popo unanimously affirmed that you would be listed as Kami's successor. Ayaka was taken aback. How could she become the successor of Kami? It seemed that she also passed the test, didn't that mean? Am I becoming a Kami? Ayaka said incredulously with wide eyes. She had just facilitated Mateto to become the successor of Kami, but unexpectedly, as soon as she returned to her world, Kami intended to make her his successor. Ayaka didn't think about becoming a Kami. She had never considered the possibility until now. Yes, I want you to become the new Kami. Kami's expression was serious as he said with a solemn face, I was not qualified as a Kami. I was once caused the world to fall into panic. After meeting Demon King Piccolo with your eyes, you should know the relationship between him and I, right? Ayaka nodded. She naturally knew that Piccolo and Kami were the same. Seeing Ayaka nodded, Kami continued, Demon King Piccolo endangered the earth, which I caused. This is my dereliction as a Kami. Unfortunately, for so many years, there has been no human who can inherit the throne of Kami until your appearance, Ayaka. Kami fixed his gaze on Ayaka, there are too many existences in the universe that are more powerful than Earthling. It would be best if you had more power than I do to guard Earth better. More importantly, although you are not an Earthling, you have a kind heart. Through my observation of you over the past few years, I know you love this planet. Therefore, I hope you can become the new Kami of Earth. Kami said with a firm gaze. Facing the burning gaze of Kami, Ayaka didn't know how to refuse. It seemed that what the Kami said was what she had said to Matedo. It felt like a slap in the face. Wouldn't Mr. Popo be better suited to become a Kami? Ayaka said. Although she did not resist becoming a Kami of Earth, she couldn't be bound to Earth. Ayaka still had ambitious goals and couldn't stay on Earth. Popo is a servant of Kami for generations. He is responsible for guarding the lookout and cannot become Kami. Mr. Popo explained that there was a clear division of labor between Kami and Kami's servants. Kami guarded the Earth, while Kami's servants guarded the lookout and could not overstep the limits at all. But, I can't stay at the lookout all the time. I may leave the Earth often. Ayaka said with difficulty. However, Kami didn't intend to give up on Ayaka and said, "This does not matter. I will still stay in the lookout. I just pass on the position of Kami to you. When you leave the Earth, Mr. Popo and I will take care of the Earth, you just have to step in to guard the Earth at critical times." Since Kami had said the words to a point, and the Earth's future was also dependent on her and other people to guard, so Ayaka did not refuse. She was quick to agree, "Well, then, I promise to become the Earth's Kami." After seeing Ayaka agree to become Earth's Kami, Kami and Mr. Popo's face revealed a smile. They were happy from the bottom of their hearts to be able to elect such a young and outstanding Kami for Earth. Next, Mr. Popo took Ayaka to the lookout's bathroom so that Ayaka could cleanse her body properly. Lying in the bathroom, Ayaka touched her lamb-like delicate and fleshy thighs and thought somewhat dizzily, "Am I about to become a Kami?" After bathing, Kami led Ayaka to a room at the bottom of the lookout, which was where the souls of Kami of the past generations slept. Kami bowed respectfully to the rows of Kami and then said solemnly, "Seniors, I have now chosen a new Kami, Ayaka. She has come to pay respect to the ancestors' spirits." After saying that, Kami pulled Ayaka to kneel. In a flash, Ayaka seemed to see the spirits of Kami of the past generations detach themselves from the tablets and then swirl around. A peculiar aura emerged from those spirit positions and then entered her body. A feeling of infinite comfort rushed to her heart, and Ayaka felt her whole body was warm and indescribably painful. Greedily absorbing this peculiar aura, Ayaka's body emitted a crackling sound like firecrackers exploding in her ears. Kami did not interrupt Ayaka because he knew that Ayaka was receiving the inheritance of Kami of the past generations. After receiving the inheritance power of the Kami, Ayaka felt her body became more powerful. There was an indescribable feeling of comfort all over her body. Ayaka stood up, stretched her arms. It was a simple action but contained endless power. All of a sudden, the whirlwind swirled, the wind whistled, like a wild horse of the rains, wanting to run wildly. Kami felt the majestic ki emanating from Ayaka, and he couldn't help but feel cold all over his body as if he was in tens of degrees below zero all of a sudden. Kami's face anxiously shouted to Ayaka, "Ayaka, stop quickly. This is the place where the Kami of the past generations sleep, you can't be so rude." His heart was thrilled. The more powerful the new Kami, the safer the Earth will become. Ayaka laughed in embarrassment, and bowed to Kami's tomb, and apologized. After leaving Kami's tomb, Kami said to Ayaka, "Ayaka, you are Kami on Earth from now on. I will teach you how to use the powers of the Kami in the next few days." Ayaka nodded with a smile on her face. Just a moment ago, after receiving Kami's inheritance, Ayaka found out that her power level had reached 180,000. 180,000 power level was truly a high power level power of the universe. In the original story, this was the power of Son Goku when he arrived on planet Namek. He reached it when he had just turned 15, which made Ayaka's mood extraordinarily soothing. "Kami, I feel the presence of another world, which is full of death." Ayaka said, and Kami replied, "That is the other world. Kami can travel between the other world and the world of living. I will have to take you to visit King Yema." Kami said to Ayaka again, "Ayaka, you are already a kami, so you don't need to call me kami anymore. Call me Bodhi or old kami. Okay, Bodhi, Ayaka said. She had never heard of the name Bodhi in the original story, so she thought it was a name given by Kami himself. The next few days, the old Kami Bodhi taught Ayaka how to use Kami's ability. After old Kami's teaching, Ayaka found that Kami's ability was more like a wizard's magic and somewhat like superpowers. This ability could only be passed down, and there was no other way to learn other than passing it down. Since the old Kami was a Namekian, and the Namekians had magical abilities, he didn't lose his Kami ability. When Ayaka was familiar with the ability of Kami, the old Kami took Ayaka into the other world to meet King Yema, who was in charge of the death of the north area. The first time she saw King Yema, Ayaka was startled by his huge body. She never thought that King Yema was as huge as the original. With her appearance and a small talkative mouth, Ayaka and King Yema made a good relationship, and she often made King Yema laugh. Ayaka was considered to have the best relationship with King Yema in the history of the Earth's Kami. When Ayaka left to return to the world of living, King Yema specially sent her out of the hall, which caused a burst of envy and jealousy in the old Kami hearts who had not received such treatment. Ayaka stayed in the lookout for a few more months. During these months, under the leadership of Mr. Popo, Ayaka became thoroughly familiar with the lookout structure and gradually became a qualified kami. Today, Ayaka must go down to the lower realm. Initially, she promised Son Goku that she would return to Kame House in 1 or 2 years, but she had been away for nearly 3 years due to the delay of various things. In another year, Son Goku would be 12 years old, and then the plot would begin. She must find the 4-star Dragon Ball before then and then take Son Goku back to Mount Paozu, waiting for Bulma's arrival. I cannot imagine that it's been 15 years since I came to the Dragon Ball world. Next, the plot will be played out. Ayaka thought without emotion, gently stroking her gradually growing body and the fair and watery skin. Ayaka felt that her body was becoming more and more attractive. At this time, Ayaka's heart began to distress. As a result of facing such a beautiful and petite body day and night, she started to pay more attention for this body. Ayaka felt that she was more and more inclined to narcissism. Just when Ayaka lost in thought, the old kami, Bodhi, came to the side and said, "Ayaka, I heard that you are going down to the lower realm." Ayaka resumed her usual appearance and said, "Yes, it's been 3 years since I said goodbye to Son Goku, it's time to go back and see him." The old kami nodded and followed Ayaka to look at the lower realm. The old kami reminded Ayaka, "After you go down to the lower realm, you should be sympathetic to the people of the lower realm and do your duty as a kami." "I know how to do that." Ayaka agreed. Since accepting the position of kami, Ayaka had often thought from the perspective of a kami. "That's right." The old kami looked at Ayaka in a casual and fashionable dress, remembered something, and said, "This outfit of yours is too undignified. I hope you can change." Ayaka couldn't help but roll her eyes and said helplessly, "Come on, old kami. I'm not like you, I'm the first ever female kami on Earth. Is there a rule that a female kami must dress like the costume you're wearing?" Ayaka said somewhat forcefully, not willing to back down at all regarding the dressing of her body. The old kami sighed and said, "Well, dress how you want to dress. But the mark of kami cannot be left behind." With that, the old kami stretched out a finger and cast a magic spell on Ayaka's clothes. With a poof sound, a small kami was printed on the inside of Ayaka's blouse collar. The shoulders were also draped with a female white kami trench coat, which also had the word kami printed on the chest and back. In addition to wearing a beautiful and fashionable dress, Ayaka was draped with a heroic goddess trench coat 3 centimeters from her shoulders, making her look even more solemn and mysterious. You don't have to wear this female-style kami trench coat in general, but you must have the mark of kami printed at the collar of your hundreds of tops. Got it. Ayaka lazily agreed. She took out all her clothes, printed the kami mark on the collar of her clothes, and then leaped down the lookout. Upon looking at the figure that had disappeared, the old kami smiled and shook his head. Through the thick layer of lightning, Ayaka saw the top of the Korin Tower's round sphere. Remembering Korin, who she had not seen for several years, Ayaka stopped and entered the tower with one step. At this time, Korin enjoyed the fish that Ayaka had left behind when he saw Ayaka appear in the Korin Tower. "Hi, long time no see, Korin." As Korin heard someone greet him, he put down the fresh fish in his hand and turned his gaze. He found that Ayaka was looking at him with a smile. When Korin saw the white kami trench coat Ayaka was wearing, he couldn't help but stare. He didn't even know when the fish in his hand had fallen to the ground, obviously shocked by Ayaka's outfit. Korin pointed his paws at Ayaka and said with a look of disbelief, "Ayaka, this dress doesn't it belong to Kami?" "Yes, Korin, I am the new Kami of Earth." Ayaka smiled lightly and nodded to acknowledge her new identity and then extended her hand to shake Korin. "Please take care of me in the future." Korin looked at Ayaka in dismay, incredulous at Ayaka's new identity. He didn't expect that the little girl who had just climbed up the Korin Tower a few years ago would now become a kami after just a few years of absence. "Ayaka, you are so out of my expectation." Korin quickly calmed down and accepted Ayaka's new identity. Ayaka smiled. She did not expect to become a kami herself. She smiled at Korin and said, "It was the old kami's choice. At first, even I was shocked. I never thought that Kami would choose me to be his successor." Korin nodded. Ayaka had such a strong power that it made sense that she would be noticed by the kami and chosen as the new kami. However, he did not expect that she would become a kami already. "I happen to be going down to the lower realm. Since I passed by here, I came to see you. How about it? How do those fish taste? Do you want me to bring you some more next time?" Hearing Ayaka said that she would bring it some more fish over, Korin's ears perked up at once and listened carefully to Ayaka's words. "Well, those fish taste very good. So if you can, bring me some more." "Yes, I will bring you a lot of fish next time." Ayaka smiled and nodded in agreement. She then jumped off the Korin Tower and flew towards the lower realm. Korin looked at the clouds below and licked his paws, full of anticipation for Ayaka's next arrival. Ayaka quickly landed on the ground and hit her kami trench coat with a divine shadow. She then took out the Dragon Ball radar and searched for the 4-star Dragon Ball of Son Goku and the Ox King Dragon Ball. Beep! The Dragon Ball radar quickly showed the location of the 7 Dragon Balls. After a simple judgment, Ayaka chose the nearest Dragon Ball and then, whoosh, towards the radar location. With Ayaka's strength today, even with a weight-bearing suit, she still could fly very fast. In no time, Ayaka arrived at a plateau of barren vegetation and yellow sand. This plateau above the stone pile, large and small stone pillars covered the entire plateau. Due to the proximity to the nearby Gobi Beach, the temperature difference between day and night on the plateau was extremely high, and moisture was also scarce, making the desert devoid of vegetation. Ayaka landed on a cluster of rocks in the desert, looking at the plateau filled with sand and dust, and couldn't help but frown. "I'm afraid this plateau will turn into a desert in a short while." The Earth was a beautiful azure planet with continents and oceans evenly distributed on it. Comfortable climatic conditions and very little artificial damage allowed countless lives to flourish on the planet. Although the planet was suitable for the survival of life, there were also places of extreme harshness. This plateau where Ayaka was located was not such a harsh environment, but it was much worse than other places. The temperature difference between day and night and the lack of water here wasn't very suitable for large numbers of life, yet there was always some life that could survive here. Roar! A giant dinosaur came out from behind a pile of rocks with a mouth full of saliva and roared at Ayaka demonstratively, treating Ayaka as prey and swooping over with its whole body. Ayaka looked at the mouth full of saliva and was disgusted by its image. Her feet gently jumped upwards to avoid the dinosaur's attack. Boom! The dinosaur's bulky body hit the stone pillar in front of it with a loud sound. The ground shook up, and scattered stones rolled down from above. It smashed on the dinosaur's head, breaking its brain into a daze. The dinosaur shook his head and attacked again toward Ayaka. Are all dinosaurs such silly animals? Looking at the dinosaur that continued to attack her Ayaka was a little speechless. She remembered that when Son Gohan was brought to training by Piccolo, there was also a dinosaur chasing Son Gohan, trying to take Son Gohan as food. However, in the end, Son Gohan cut off his tail and roasted it to eat. Since you dare to chase me, you have to be prepared to be beaten. Ayaka's body flashed, disappeared from the stone pillar. The breakneck speed left a few streaks in the air, and between lightning and fire, she had come under the dinosaur. Bang! A fist smashed the jaw of the dinosaur. The dinosaur let out a low whimper and passed out with two straight eyes. Big head but so low strength. It tumbles down in 3 or 2 moves. With a foot gently landed, Ayaka stroked her hair. She looked at the fainted dinosaur and said. Ayaka had no intention of roasting it, so she left the dinosaur behind. Long after Ayaka left, the dinosaur wobbled up from the ground, then looked in horror at the direction Ayaka left and fled in the other direction. Ayaka landed on a dead tree bush, pressed the Dragon Ball radar button, zoomed in on the map, and the radar showed that the Dragon Ball was nearby. It's around here. Ayaka looked around, looking for the place where the Dragon Ball might be hiding. After searching for a long time without finding any Dragon Ball's trace, Ayaka chopped the dead shrubs and went deeper into the bushes. After splitting nearly half of the bushes, Ayaka saw a flash of light in a cluster of bushes. Found it. Jumping to the middle of the shrubs, an orange-red Dragon Ball was caught between the shrub's branches, reflecting the light of the sun. Wrenching the fork of the tree to get the Dragon Ball in her hand, Ayaka found that this Dragon Ball was not the 4-star of Son Goku. It's not the 4-star. I'll give this one back to the Ox King. Ayaka put the Dragon Ball in her pouch and took out the Dragon Ball radar to search for the next Dragon Ball location. With 2 beeps, the radar shows the other 6 Dragon Balls signal, and Ayaka's body gently flew up towards the nearest Dragon Ball. From time to time, the wind whistled wildly in her ears. Her cheeks were blown cold by the strong wind, and her loose hair was fluttering in the wind. Flying through the jungle and plateau, she gradually came to flatter terrain. Ayaka continued to fly forward into the rocky structure of the canyon. The floor of the canyon was distributed with crisscrossing cracks, some cracks were thin and deep. The vertical gullies formed a separate block of rocks, stacking on top of each other, and the edges became weathered and fragile under the erosion of rain and frost. It's troublesome to find the Dragon Ball here. Upon facing the crisscross gully, Ayaka felt a little numb in her heart. These thick cracks were as wide as a person, and the thin cracks were a fist size. Each one of them was deep, about a dozen meters deep. If the Dragon Ball fell into a certain deep gully crack, it would be very troublesome to get out. After turning the Dragon Ball radar map to the maximum, the Dragon Ball signal was displayed at the red triangle of the radar screen. It seems that the Dragon Ball really fell inside the crack. Ayaka smiled bitterly. If she wanted to get that Dragon Ball, she would have to turn the whole canyon over. Ayaka slowly flew into the air and stopped 1,000 meters from the ground. With one hand, she gathered up the ki in her body. The surging ki in her body exploded steeply, flowing from all parts of her body toward her palm, condensing into a ki wave in her palm. Ayaka's entire arm emitted a blinding light. She then raised her fist high to bring the ki in her palm toward the ground. With a whoosh, a blue ki wave descended from the sky. It was like a fierce tiger roaring, rushing with a destructive aura, crashing unstoppably into the canyon. Boom! The ki wave struck the ground with a huge explosion through the sky. The loud explosion sound was accompanied by a dazzling light that came to the surface, and the stunning and blinding light made people close their eyes. The ground was constantly shaking, and a large handful of rock was blown into the air. The shock wave from the explosion swept around at a breakneck speed and soon flooded the entire canyon. The explosion produced a huge mushroom cloud that enveloped the entire sky. A powerful cyclone rolled up a sky full of dust and sand flying in the sky. A huge change in the canyon that was difficult to see with the naked eye instantly changed the canyon structure. The chaotic and raging storm gradually subsided, and the thick smoke slowly receded. The vision became clear again, and the sight was a completely different face of the earth. Rocky ravines consisting of canyons had been flattened, covered with potholes of varying sizes. A few wisps of smoke still drifted over the land as if it had experienced an apocalypse. Ayaka slowly landed and stood on a large piece of ruined ground. I seem to have overplayed the fire. As she gazed at the canyon that had been razed to the ground, Ayaka froze, slightly inattentive. The fire just now seems to be a bit too much. The Dragon Ball should not be destroyed, right? Taking out the Dragon Ball radar, she carefully detected up. Fortunately, the Dragon Ball signal was quickly displayed on the radar. Ayaka breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that the attack just now did not destroy the Dragon Balls, or Ayaka would have to find the old Kami to recreate the Dragon Balls. The whole ground had been flattened, trying to find the Dragon Ball was also quite difficult. Fortunately, the Dragon Ball had been knocked out in the explosion just now, and it was much easier to find. Ayaka found the general location and then bombarded it with ki waves. This time Ayaka controlled the power of the ki waves, and each time only a meter-deep hole was blown. Soon, the Dragon Ball was blown out by Ayaka. Catching the Dragon Ball blown up into the sky, Ayaka carefully counted the number of stars on it. 6 stars. Ayaka was a little disappointed that the Dragon Ball found this time was also not Son Goku's 4-star. She carefully put the 6-star into her pouch, then flew away from the area and continued to fly in the direction of the Dragon Ball radar display. As Ayaka continued to fly, the sky gradually darkened. She decided to land near a forest lake. Boom! She threw out the capsule, took her luxury villa out of the capsule, and then entered the bathroom to turn on the hot water and took a painful hot bath to wash all the dust off her body. After a comfortable bath, Ayaka walked out of the bathroom wrapped in just a yukata and picked up a hairdryer to dry her damp hair. Even though she was wearing a simple yukata, Ayaka's exquisite body was also very clearly reflected. Such beauty would make people's hearts beat faster, and their blood boils. Ayaka blew her hair dry and quickly removed the yukata. She then went to the bedroom and found a set of white underwear to put on. In the face of such a charming body, Ayaka found herself growing more and more fascinating. In the long run, she would be on the verge of becoming a narcissist. Shifting into the quilt, she covered her head and fell asleep. The next day, with the sun shining through the window, Ayaka got up. She got dressed, then went to the bathroom and washed up briefly. After eating breakfast, Ayaka turned the villa back into a capsule and put it away, then took out the Dragon Ball radar and looked at it. Ayaka found a slight change in the Dragon Ball signal shown on the radar. In addition to the signal being sought, Ayaka found that a Dragon Ball was approaching at a speed of 3,000 km per hour and was expected to pass by here in 10 minutes. Could it be that this Dragon Ball has been obtained and is flying at high speed? Ayaka intended to temporarily give up the Dragon Ball that she was initially looking for and wait for the approaching one. 10 minutes passed quickly, and from afar, Ayaka saw something flying towards here. Something is flying over there. There was a whoosh. A red shadow flew through the sky and quickly moved away. Although it passed by very briefly, Ayaka could already see what it was. Surprisingly, it is the world's #1 assassin, Mercenary Tao, the younger brother of Master Shen. Ayaka looked at the person who flew past with some surprise. That person was Mercenary Tao, who had the name of the world's #1 assassin. Mercenary Tao stood on a concrete pillar and flew through the sky. Ayaka hurriedly took out the Dragon Ball radar, which showed that a Dragon Ball was moving away rapidly. The Dragon Ball is on Mercenary Tao. Ayaka thought with certainty. Although she didn't know why there was a Dragon Ball on Mercenary Tao, she shouldn't let it get away since she ran into it. Her body gently floated up, and Ayaka accelerated and chased towards Mercenary Tao. As the world's #1 assassin, Mercenary Tao was one of the very few who could be compared to Master Roshi and even stronger than Master Roshi. In the original story, Mercenary Tao accepted the Red Ribbon Army's commission to snatch the Dragon Balls from Son Goku and was later defeated by Son Goku, who climbed up the Korin Tower. Ayaka's flight speed was faster than Mercenary Tao's. It didn't take long for her to catch up to the concrete pillar that Mercenary Tao was standing on, and then she also jumped onto the concrete pillar. After seeing a young girl who suddenly jumped on his concrete pillar, Mercenary Tao could not help but be a little stunned and said in a dark tone, "Who are you that you dare to come to the world's #1 assassin, Mercenary Tao?" Ayaka lightly smiled and did not answer Mercenary Tao's question. Instead, she gently dodged her foot, and energy with great explosive power burst out from the bottom of Ayaka's foot, followed by the whole concrete pillar shaking violently. Suddenly, the concrete pillar disintegrated with a bang, turning into a sky of flying sand and dust. The energy bursting out from the bottom of Ayaka's feet was so destructive that it destroyed the concrete pillar structure internally, causing it to disintegrate into sand and dust. Mercenary Tao jumped down the moment the concrete pillar disintegrated, flipped through the air, and landed on the ground with a shocked look at the girl not far away. Ayaka slowly landed across from Mercenary Tao with a dancing sky art, smiling blandly. "Mercenary Tao, you should have one of these balls on you, right?" Ayaka asked with a smile as she took out a Dragon Ball from her pouch. "How dare you talk to this lord like that? Little girl, you're really impatient to die. If you have the sense, hurry up and get out of my way." Mercenary Tao's face showed a disdainful look, but his heart was secretly shocked. He was full of alert and ready to strike at any time. Ayaka secretly shook her head. How could she not see the hostility of the Mercenary Tao? She showed a look of helplessness and said, "Originally, I planned to solve the problem peacefully. Mercenary Tao, you are too troublesome." Seeing Ayaka's attitude so reckless towards himself, Mercenary Tao raised his eyebrows a little. He could not help but be enraged. His face became gloomy. His body's morbid murderous aura instantly burst out, making the surrounding temperature seem to have dropped several degrees at once, and a bloody smell spread out. Ayaka felt the murderous aura that permeated the surroundings and couldn't help but frown. She didn't like this dark and bloody smell. "Little girl, originally for the sake of your beautiful look, I intended to let you die without pain. However, since you are so ungrateful, then do not blame this master for making you beg for death." With that, Mercenary Tao quickly attacked Ayaka, then turned his palm into a sword. With the key of 1,000 horses, he attacked with great speed. With a flash of his body, he came to Ayaka and slashed at Ayaka. "Go to hell, little girl!" Mercenary Tao shouted with a wild whistle. The huge palm in his hand was wide open. With a harsh killing aura, he slashed down towards Ayaka's head. Bang! When Mercenary Tao's huge palm was about to attack Ayaka's head, Ayaka's body flashed. Her whole body disappeared and then came to Mercenary Tao's side at a great angle, grabbing Mercenary Tao's palm with one small hand. The explosive palm was tightly grasped by Ayaka's small, snow-white hand, and the powerful impact was instantly terminated with a muffled thud. Mercenary Tao was dumbfounded at the young girl who caught his powerful attack. His face was filled with shock. How? Mercenary Tao couldn't imagine that such a small, slender hand was powerful enough to catch his attack. He wanted to get rid of Ayaka's small hand to retract his palm but found that the young girl's thin hand held him firmly like an iron pincer. Could it be that this little girl was a hidden supreme expert who for some reason remained youthful? At this thought, sweat instantly sprang up on Mercenary Tao's face. Ayaka did not know what was going through Mercenary Tao's mind. She smiled lightly and looked at Mercenary Tao with a teasing look in her eyes. Mercenary Tao fixed his mind and couldn't help but burn with anger, making his face more gloomy. Since his debut, he hadn't suffered such an insult. So, he vowed to break the young girl in front of him into pieces. Even if the other party were a supreme expert, he would let her see the means of the world's #1 assassin, Mercenary Tao. Mercenary Tao attacked Ayaka with his legs. His legs were swift, his powerful attack brought up a whirlwind, and his legs seemed to create countless stigmata. Even so, Mercenary Tao still could not attack Ayaka. Ayaka easily dodged him, and his inability to attack Ayaka for a long time made him gradually depressed, causing a sense of powerlessness to rise in his heart. "Get me aside." Ayaka flung Mercenary Tao's arm, throwing Mercenary Tao's entire body hundreds of meters, hitting the tree, then breaking the whole tree. It broke several large trees in succession before falling heavily to the ground. Bang! The ground shook for a while, and a big pit was created by Mercenary Tao's fall. Mercenary Tao was lying inside the giant pit in a wretched state. "Damn it!" Mercenary Tao crawled out of the pit. With a hand tightly clenched into a fist, he shouted with a blue face, touching some tingling arm, and his face showed disbelief. Ayaka steps in front of him, stroking her hair with one hand, and said lightly, "Obediently hand over the Dragon Ball, and I can spare your life." Mercenary Tao was covered in blood. He had killed many people for money, and Ayaka knew that she didn't feel terrific about him. So, when she met him today, she had to give him a look. If he handed over the Dragon Ball, nothing would happen, but it wouldn't be so easy for him if he didn't hand over the Dragon Ball. Yuck! Mercenary Tao shook his head, spit out a mouthful of saliva. His face was solemn as he set up an attacking style. Ayaka shook her head, "You really don't know how to live." Swoosh! With that, Ayaka disappeared from her spot, and suddenly, there was no trace of her around. Seeing Ayaka disappear, Mercenary Tao became even more vigilant and observed the surroundings. His eyes were constantly turning, and ears were listening to all sounds, trying to find Ayaka's trail. However, the gap between him and Ayaka was too great. There was an infinitely large gulf spanning between them, and Ayaka's trail was beyond Mercenary Tao's grasp. Steeply. Ayaka appeared right in front of Mercenary Tao, and there was a clear and beautiful smiling face in front of Mercenary Tao. Mercenary Tao reacted and felt a fierce attack on his waist. A powerful force spread out in his waist as Ayaka appeared on his left side and landed a fierce attack on Mercenary Tao's waist. A terrifying force erupted from his hand and sent Mercenary Tao flying out. Mercenary Tao stood up after landing on the ground. The severe pain coming from his waist made his face look a bit distorted. Ayaka found that his power level had risen from the original 140 to 180. His power level did go up a bit. As soon as the words left his mouth, Ayaka also quickly came above Mercenary Tao and... boom! Mercenary Tao was kicked in the chest. His chest dented in somewhat, and his body was shortened by the powerful impact downward by a few dozen centimeters. His 2 feet sank deeply into the mud. Poof! Mercenary Tao spitted out a mouthful of blood and passed out. Ayaka walked over to Mercenary Tao, reached out and pulled out a Dragon Ball from Mercenary Tao's blouse, and counted the number of stars on it. 4 star. Ayaka happily smiled. She had got the Dragon Ball she wanted. Ayaka's mood became extraordinarily comfortable, and her face was full of smiles as she turned around and wanted to leave. Suddenly. Dodon Ray. Red energy shot over from behind, straight at Ayaka's chest. It turned out that Mercenary Tao did not pass out but trick Ayaka into taking the bait. When the whole wave was about to attack Ayaka's chest, Ayaka turned around and stretched out a hand to take the next. The red energy wave hit Ayaka's white palm, raising only a few wisps of light smoke, and did not cause her any damage. This time, mercenary Tao was dumbfounded. His crane school pride and joy had been taken without causing any damage to his opponent. Ayaka's eyes flashed a cold, cold light. Instantly, her body surging out with terrifying ki that enveloped the earth. Kami's majesty filled the whole world. The white clouds in the sky seemed to disappear suddenly, and the ground began to tremble for it. Ayaka stretched out a finger to the sky. The vast ki gradually converged towards the finger, slowly forming a peanut-sized blue ball of ki wave. The blue ball of ki constantly flicking in Ayaka's fingertips, emitting breathtaking and terrifying energy. The peanut-sized ball of ki quickly became larger. In the blink of an eye, it became a huge energy ball with a diameter of 50 meters. The energy ball emitted a cold blue light, and a powerful explosive force that destroys the world was hidden inside. In mercenary Tao's frightened gaze, Ayaka gently threw the blue energy ball toward him. Boom! A huge explosion resounded for 100 miles, then the ground shook violently, and various mountains and rocks kept rolling down with the ground shaking. From afar, a huge mushroom cloud rushed up to a height of several thousand meters. The huge shock wave swept away with a wild momentum that was difficult to see directly. Upon looking outside the earth, a bright spot of light could be seen, and for several minutes, the world was shrouded in chaos. After dozens of minutes later, the ground finally stopped shaking. The dust flying in the sky gradually drifted down, and peace returned to the world. In the location just now, a huge crater with a diameter of 10 kilometers appeared. In the center of the crater, magma continued to gush out. Ayaka slowly floated down from the sky, still dragging a person in her hand, which was mercenary Tao. At this time, mercenary Tao's eyes were already white, completely fainted. Looking at the forest, which was entirely disfigured by her attack, Ayaka felt very sorry. The move that Ayaka just made was an imitation of Frisia. The look was somewhat similar, but the color was dark blue. In the nick of time, Ayaka used her power to wrap up the entire area under attack so that the outside world couldn't know what was happening here. Otherwise, Ayaka's strength would have been known to the old Kami. She left the fainted mercenary Tao on the ground. She did not care about his death and flew away alone. If mercenary Tao weren't still somewhat useful later on, I would have killed him with one move. After 3 years of absence, Ayaka came to the Fire Mountain again. From afar, she saw the green castle standing tall on Fire Mountain. The lofty ancient castle was surrounded by green hills and water, looking extraordinarily old. It was surrounded by lush grass and trees with dense foliage and was alone in the lush mountains of the beautiful forest, causing a feeling of straddling the past was born. Ayaka leisurely landed in the castle's garden, watching the trees in the garden with great interest. At this time, the servant responsible for looking after the garden came over. When they saw Ayaka appeared and shouted to the Ox King to report. Ayaka couldn't care much about the servant and continued to watch. Shortly after, the large size of the Ox King came over. He held a black axe the size of a man, shouting, and his words could be heard from a distance, "Is that the intruder? How dare you be in the middle of this king's garden? Get out of here." When he saw Ayaka, his fierce look turned into a smiley one at once. "So it's Ayaka. I haven't seen you for a few years, you've grown into a big girl. How come you don't come to play in Uncle's castle for so many years?" The Ox King shouted. He threw away the axe in his hand and smashed a big pit on the ground. Ayaka said with a smile, "I've been training all over the world for the past few years. Now that I've gotten better, I plan to go to Master Roshi's island. I just happened to pass by here, so I came to take a look." The Ox King nodded, believing Ayaka's words. He then said, "So, since you're going to Master Roshi's residence, can you say hello to Master Roshi for me? By the way, I have some specialties here, can you bring them along for me?" He asked Ayaka to bring a few local specialties to his teacher to pay proper respect to Master Roshi. "Yes, I'll wait a moment so you can prepare what you want me to bring." I will bring it for you. Ayaka nodded her head and agreed. Then took out a Dragon Ball and handed it to the Ox King. This is the Dragon Ball that I borrowed last time. Now I will return it to you. The Ox King accepted the Dragon Ball and casually put it into his pocket without even looking at it for a second. He then took Ayaka to the castle's hall and instructed the servants to prepare food properly. He wanted to treat Ayaka to a good meal. Where's Chi-Chi? Why haven't I seen her? Ayaka looked around. Except for the busy servants, there was no sign of Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi went to the village to deliver food to some old people. With a bit of fatty meat and his mouth constantly chewing, the Ox King replied somewhat vaguely. Ayaka nodded. Although the nearby villagers were afraid of the Ox King, they were more fond of Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi often ran to the village to help some older people who had difficulties in life. After a simple meal, Ayaka said goodbye to the Ox King. She collected a whole cart of souvenirs that the Ox King had prepared for Master Roshi and prepared to go towards the Kame house. At this point, Ayaka turned her head to look at the Ox King and said, "In a year or so, I'll bring Son Goku over. Don't you forget about him and Chi-Chi by then." Ayaka did not forget to remind the Ox King about Son Goku and Chi-Chi, before abruptly flying off in the distance. Inside the Kame house. Master Roshi's mouth was drooling as he was looking at the TV with a lewd face, watching Aerobics Lady. Outside the house, Son Goku was carrying a heavy turtle shell, kept running around the island. Booze, booze. Son Goku gasped. He was carrying a heavy gate running around the island with a bean-sized bead of sweat on his small face. Whoosh! Son Goku suddenly saw a tiny figure flying over from afar, and when it got closer, Son Goku realized that it was Ayaka. Sister. Son Goku was excited to see his sister, whom he had not seen for many years. As soon as he flew towards Ayaka, he ran over. After 3 years of absence, Son Goku had grown up a lot, and she was delighted. "Goku, I'm back. Take it, it's your Dragon Balls," she said and threw the 4-star to Son Goku. Son Goku raised his hand to catch the flying 4-star, pulling Ayaka's hand towards the Kame house, shouting, "Grandpa Roshi, my sister is back." Ayaka's back. Master Roshi's head turned from in front of the TV, just in time to see a big beautiful woman walked into the room. His eyes went straight at once. Master Roshi quickly popped over from the couch and came to Ayaka, breathing heavily through his nose in a feverish manner. "Wow! Such a great beauty! Is this Ayaka? I'm sure she's getting prettier and prettier. Oh, can you give old grandpa a feel of your chest?" Master Roshi's eyes glowed red, and his trembling hands opened into claws and attacked Ayaka's. Humph! Ayaka coldly snorted, unceremoniously knocked away the 2 ghostly hands of Master Roshi, and said with a grim face, "Master Roshi, you haven't changed your old habits. If you have the guts to give me another try, see if I don't break your hands." Master Roshi retracted his hand sarcastically. His face was a little embarrassed looking at Ayaka, muttering, "Why is her temper getting worse and worse? She even refused me to touch her. What are you muttering about?" Ayaka's face became ugly, with an icy coldness in his gaze. "Nothing. I wanted to say how come you didn't come back until now. Goku and I missed you so much." Master Roshi was digressing to talk about Son Goku's training results over the past 3 years. Ayaka could see that after 3 years of hard training, Son Goku's strength had grown considerably. His power level reached more than 100, only 20 lower than when he first participated in the World Martial Arts Tournament. "By the way, when I came back, I passed by the Ox King's Fire Mountain, and he asked me to bring you something. You've met the Ox King." Master Roshi was a little surprised. He did not expect that Ayaka knew his second disciple, the Ox King. Ayaka nodded, took out a capsule, and threw it on the ground. Boom! The entire room filled with thick white smoke, and by the time the smoke cleared, the whole room was already stuffed with all kinds of meat and fur. It was hard even to find a place to land. Wow, a lot of meat. Son Goku looked at a room of meat. His mouth was drooling, and his eyes were shining brightly. Master Roshi was looking at the room stuffed with pieces of meat, and his face muscles couldn't help but twitch up. He had nothing to say to his second disciple. Kame House was located in the sea, and typically there was little meat in addition to seafood. This afternoon, Ayaka very busy in the kitchen, floating out a tempting smell of meat. The tantalizing aroma attracted Son Goku, his mouth was full of drool. He could not wait to run back and forth in the house. Finally, it was time to eat. Son Goku's mouth was stuffed with pieces of meat, and he grabbed 2 fatty meat pieces in his hands. His tongue rolled, and only a bone was left. He grabbed the roast meat with both hands and kept sending it to his mouth. After enjoying the meal, Son Goku was lying on the ground with a happy face. He patted the bulging belly with his hand, so full, rarely have I ever eaten so much. Goku is very good at eating, right? How have you lived these years? Ayaka quietly asked Master Roshi. This small kami house didn't look like it had a lot of food in stock, so she wondered how Master Roshi fed Son Goku. As soon as she mentioned Son Goku's meal, Master Roshi's eyes became red as if he was in love with the scene, and he was about to shed tears, which startled Ayaka. She didn't know that all this would have to be borne by the Master Roshi since she left. Previously, he didn't know that Son Goku's meals were so horrible, until one day, Son Goku almost consumed the stock of food in the Kame house. Master Roshi hurried to the market to buy food, but it was eaten up within a few days. Upon watching the money in the waistband slowly flatten down, Master Roshi wanted to cry. So, for the following days they lived with so little food. Until Son Goku began to catch the fish in the sea, their lives had improved, but they never returned to the previous standard of living. Looking at Master Roshi's pathetic story of these years of experience, Ayaka couldn't help but begin to sympathize with Master Roshi. These years were not easy for Master Roshi. However, Ayaka's sympathy did not last a few seconds, and her face became an iron blue. After seeing that he gained Ayaka's sympathy, Master Roshi buried his head into Ayaka's chest and kept rubbing Ayaka's soft chest. Sure enough, this dead old man does not deserve sympathy in the slightest. Ayaka grabbed Master Roshi, who was still buried in her chest. Bang! She punched him in the head. Boom! Master Roshi was hit by Ayaka's punch and flew straight toward the wall with a bang. His head went through the wall and was stuck in the wall. Soon, it had been a few days since Ayaka came to the Kame house. In the past few days, Ayaka had been nothing but good to Master Roshi. From time to time, she lost her temper with him, making Master Roshi as uncomfortable as eating a fly. Of course, this was all his own doing. In the meantime, Ayaka tested Son Goku's training and found that Son Goku's strength had been close to the degree when he participated in the World Martial Arts Tournament. His age was nearly 2 years earlier than the original. It seemed to be good reason for coming to the Master Roshi a few years earlier. This day. Horny old man, you come here. Ayaka was extremely bad-tempered and yelled at Master Roshi. Son Goku stood by her side, standing still. What is it? Master Roshi was wearing a pair of sunglasses, which reflected a dazzling bright light from the sunglasses corner under the sunlight. In addition to Kamehameha, don't you have a set of Thunder Shock Surprise? Why didn't you teach Goku? Ayaka remembered Master Roshi had 2 techniques. Respectively, Kamehameha and Thunder Shock Surprise. In the original story, Master Roshi transformed into a dragon and defeated Son Goku with Thunder Shock Surprise. The Thunder Shock Surprise was the same as the Crane School Tri-Beam. Due to excessive power, it was not easy to control. Master Roshi had not passed it on until he was gradually eliminated in later high-intensity battles. Ayaka thought, since Son Goku could use Kamehameha, perhaps he could better play the Thunder Shock Surprise's power. She had seen Mateto use the Thunder Shock Surprise, and the power was one of the most powerful peaked demon King Piccolo had to avoid it. How do you know that I know the Thunder Shock Surprise? Master Roshi was astonished. When Master Roshi and Master Shen were still studying with their teacher Mateto, Mateto taught Master Roshi the Thunder Shock Surprise and Master Shen Tri-Beam. As a result, they developed Kamehameha as well as the Dodon Ray. Since the establishment of Turtle School, Master Roshi had rarely used the Thunder Shock Surprise. He usually only used the Kamehameha because the power of the Thunder Shock Surprise was too powerful. It was easy to cause devastating damage. Master Roshi thought that no one in the world would know about the Thunder Shock Surprise anymore, but unexpectedly Ayaka knew about it. You don't have to worry about how I know. Tell me, have you ever taught Goku this technique? Ayaka's eyes widened with a fierce look. The Thunder Shock Surprise is too powerful, I don't think it's time for Goku to learn it yet. Master Roshi said seriously. The Thunder Shock Surprise was to transform all the ki in the body into the form of lightning to release. The release was challenging, and the power was many times stronger than Kamehameha. The slightest mistake could endanger Goku's life. Master Roshi believed that current Son Goku was not ready to master the Thunder Shock Surprise. However, Ayaka did not think so. Although Son Goku was not very strong, at least he was very close to Master Roshi. Son Goku was kind-hearted, and even if he learned the Thunder Shock Surprise, she did not have to worry that he would go to do evil. Moreover, Master Shen had taught his Tri-Beam to Tien Shinhan. As a disciple of Turtle School, Goku's number of techniques couldn't be too far behind. Goku's strength is gradually becoming stronger. I believe that in less than a year or two, Goku will reach your level, and even far more than you. There is no need to worry that Goku will be unable to control what happens after he learns the Thunder Shock Surprise. Seeing some hesitation in Master Roshi's eyes, Ayaka knew that Master Roshi was considering various factors, so she added fuel to the fire and said, I heard that Master Shen has already passed the Tri-Beam to his disciple. What? Master Roshi's expression changed greatly. He didn't expect Master Roshi to pass such a dangerous move to his disciple, so he couldn't help but have a gloomy face. That be *** Shen, how dare he pass such a dangerous move to his disciple? What nonsense, did he forget the instructions of teacher Mateto? Master Roshi slate down his face. His face hung with frost, and his eyes penetrated with a cold light. Master Shen had gone too far, how could he pass on a move like the Tri-Beam so early? Call Goku over, I want to pass on the Thunder Shock Surprise. Master Roshi said in a firm voice. Shortly after, Son Goku came to Master Roshi. Grandpa Roshi, what do you want to see me about? Son Goku asked seriously. When he heard that he was going to learn a new technique, he immediately became happy. Master Roshi nodded and began to teach Son Goku how to perform the Thunder Shock Surprise and the things he needed to pay attention to. Master Roshi said thoughtfully, the Thunder Shock Surprise is mighty and is a master technique of my teacher, Mateto. Goku, after you learn it, you must never use it at will to avoid causing additional damage. Son Goku nodded thoughtfully and took note of Master Roshi's words. The next few days, Master Roshi was constantly teaching Son Goku to learn the Thunder Shock Surprise. Son Goku also gradually mastered the Thunder Shock Surprise's essentials and was slowly able to release a small Thunder Shock Surprise. When launching the Thunder Shock Surprise, his whole body would be covered by a powerful electric current, emitting a glowing electric light. All the ki in his body would be transformed into lightning power, and two powerful electric currents would shoot out from the palms of his hands, and then the enemy would be completely crushed. Son Goku's strength was not enough to bring out the maximum power of the Thunder Shock Surprise. However, even the immature Thunder Shock Surprise would be covered with beeping arcs when it was used. The two bright currents converged in the palms of his hands, emitting the unique blue glow of electricity, and the lightning on his hands would be gently struck. The two thunderbolts were like flying silver snakes, winding and emitting dazzling lightning, with a roar, shooting towards the earth with great speed. Boom! The blue lightning struck the ground, instantly cracked countless blows. The powerful electric current ravaged the ground and from the center began to spread in all directions, continually flashing blue arcs of electricity. A large amount of mud and sand was powerfully squeezed and blown away, exploding a several-meter-deep circular crater, surrounded by wisps of smoke. Master Roshi secretly nodded. His heart was speechless. He did not expect Son Goku to learn the Thunder Shock surprise so quickly. In his year, he followed the martial arts teacher to learn it for a long time. He really couldn't be compared to Son Goku. The Thunder Shock surprise's power was indeed much stronger than Kamehameha. The same ki caused dozens of times the destructive power of Kamehameha. However, it still couldn't compare with the Tri-Beam. In the original story, Tien Shinhan used the Tri-Beam at the World Martial Arts Tournament, which blew the entire venue out of the bottomless square crater. Should be the strength gap. Son Goku now has a power level of more than 100, while Tien Shinhan's power level was nearly 180. Upon seeing Son Goku had learned the Thunder Shock surprise, Ayaka was ready to say goodbye to Master Roshi. After packing up a little, Ayaka would take Son Goku to leave. At that moment, Master Roshi called Son Goku to a halt. "Goku, wait a minute. I have something for you." Ayaka secretly speculated on the sidelines, Master Roshi might want to give Son Goku the flying nimbus. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep you updated for future uploads.